Okay, we're good. We're good, and we're alive. We're alive. Damn it, we're alive. Ah. No, I'm on the wrong page. There we go. Okay, and okay. Okay, little John. Okay. How you doing? Oh, man. What a week. What a week I had. Little Joan had a week, too. Didn't you, Joe? Didn't you, Joan? So I did 6 events this week, which is why I'm a little rundown. Tomorrow, I'm crashing out. I'm going to crash out like I've never crashed out before on Monday. But I did 6 events this week. What did I do? I did a senior center, and then I did the night market. Then I did another senior center. Those first 2 were on Thursday. Then Friday I did another senior center, and then another market on a farm, and then I did Dover Comic Con, which was absolute killer, and then I did the Toms River Elk Show today, 10th anniversary. Indy Phantom is here. Hollywoke gets a wake up slap to the face from Big Willie. What? Who's Big Willie? Is that Joan? Joan, is that your alternate name? Is that your stage name? It's like ironic because you're little. Oh, right. Indy Phantom, Senior Week. It's Senior Week. Okay, guess we got to talk about old people in movies. JEC is here. Hi, hi, hi. Hi, hi, hi. Say hi, 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 little Joan. Hi, hi, hi. It was quite a week. Quite a week. So I'm a bit fried, but I've got my iced tea. I'm full of chicken parmesan because Indy Phantom, Fresh Prince. Okay. Now I sort of get the reference. I never really watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I know, it was a Philly-based show, and normally I'm very much into the local stuff, and I didn't watch it. I mean, once in a while I'd catch part of an episode, but oh god, the reboot on that thing was so friggin' serious. Like, the original show was just a wacky sitcom. Then they did this, like, super serious reboot that was supposed to be like 90210. So dumb. So dumb. Like, no one asked for that. No one. It's like the dumbest college students are in charge of Hollywood now. The dumbest. And the richest and the most spoiled, of course. And they're usually the dumbest. And it's like their parents just said, honey, go make a TV show. It was super serious, Mom and Dad. I'm gonna redo The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air the way it should have been, because they tackled some serious issues on that show. Okay, dear, whatever you say. We're billionaires. We don't care what you do. And then, I don't. Where's that show now? Does that show ever get a second season? I think it was called Bel-Air. It's like, I could understand them doing a soap opera that takes place in Bel-Air and doing basically the same thing. But I can't understand why they would remake specifically The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air just to make it completely not like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, that sitcom was so iconic. Indy Phantom, yeah, I didn't watch it, but Bad Boys leads the box office. That is true. That is the shocker for today. That is the shocker. And let's get into the box office, Joan. You lazy dog. Just gonna sleep through the whole thing. That is the shocker today. Dun dun dun. Bad Boys for Life, Ride or Die is number 1 and did pretty decently for the weekend. 56 million domestic, 48 overseas, cracking 100 mil opening weekend. Do we have a budget on this thing? Yeah, it's already made its budget back. So this will be okay. This will make its money. This will be money, I would think. Next week, and I think it'll have legs. And why do I think that? Even though I believe this was directed by the same guys who directed the third movie, which is considered very poor. Let's see. It's Bad Boys for Life was the last one, right? So these are the two guys. El Arib and Fala directed that one, and I believe they directed this one too. Yes. So, here is my theory why this movie is number one this week. Indie Phantom didn't know there was a reboot. Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, I saw the trailer, of course. I didn't actually watch this show, but it looked terrible. It looked way too serious. So, Bad Boys Ride or Die, made by the same two guys who made the third Bad Boys installment, which is not considered good from what I've heard. I watched the first two. I liked those. I heard the third one was bad. I didn't go to see it. Indie Phantom, it goes a long way to kick Furiosa further down the road. You're giving away the best parts. No, it's fine. LeMay is here. Hi. So here's my theory why Bad Boys Ride or Die is number one this week. Even though the same two guys directed the third one, and that's not very good. The first thing is, it's possible that the two guys directed the third one and got terribly bad reviews, and by some miracle they were asked to do another movie, and they said to themselves, well, we have to do better than last time. And the other dude was like, yeah, I guess. Why did they hate the previous one? And they looked at it, and maybe they took in some of the feedback, and they actually made the movie better, is my theory. So it's probably at least marginally better. My second theory, or second part of that theory, is there's nothing else to watch. There's literally nothing else in the movie theaters. Since Furiosa S the bed, basically Fall Guy S the bed, there's like nothing out. There's nothing to compete with it. Look at this list of movies. Bad Boys Ride or Die. Number 2, dropping from number 1, the Garfield movie. Garfield movie, it's in its third week. It only dropped by 29%. This movie has legs. $192 million. Ain't too shabby for a movie that only cost $60 million. Once again, Chris Pratt delivers the box office, doggy. Sorry, I nearly poked you in the eye. Well, you moved your head suddenly. Don't do that. Chris Pratt is on a roll, baby. Look at his box office. They used to take, I don't know if I could find it anymore, but Variety used to take celebrities and then do a rundown of their box office. Chris Pratt is on a roll. Even his crap movies are doing well. Indie Phantom, third Bad Boys was a big step down. Oops. These are the same dudes that had the Batwoman movie S-canned. Oh, that's right. I did read that. Yeah, I'm guessing they're terrible. I mean, to have your movie canceled so no one will see it. It's one thing like you make a bad movie and they don't advertise it and you feel you got shafted and that the movie's actually good and the critics all panned it. You know, that's one thing. But when they actually basically delete your movie, we don't want anybody to see this movie. I mean, that's got to be disheartening. It's got to be disheartening. And that begs the question, how do these guys keep getting work? Who would want to hire these guys? Well, what was your last movie? Oh, it was Batgirl. The movie no one will ever see because they didn't want anybody to see it? Yeah, that was it. That was us. And didn't you do the Bad Boys movies, the last installment, the third one? Yeah, that didn't go too well either. But at least it went out in the theaters. Imagine you're those two guys. It's like, okay, I guess they've saved their career at this point. But my suggestion to them is put Chris Pratt into something. Because apparently Chris Pratt has got the Midas touch on movies at this point. I can't remember the last movie he was in that didn't make money. That did not make money. Look at the record. Garfield movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Mario Brothers movie, huge, and what was the one? What was the other one? I think there was one before that. I mean, there's other ones, of course, but JC, what are there other movies besides those 3? Excellent question. Let's take a look. I'll look at I'm going to guess these guys probably do a lot of stuff. All right, so this is one of the two guys, Adel El Arbi. All right, so here's his credits. So they list Batgirl completed. Looks like he's doing The Mummy. They're remaking The Mummy again. Who the heck's in this? I don't know. Is that the new? Is that going to be the remake of the what's the name movie? Okay, so you got Bad Boys, Ride or Die, episodes of Ms. Marvel, the lowest rated Marvel thing before I don't know, the last disaster they had. Indie Phantom, Bollywood, JEC, Bollywood, he says. Before that, it was Rebel, Soil, Bad Boys for Life, deleted scenes, Bad Boys for Life, Dimitri Vegas and Mike Feet, featuring Wiz Khalifa, Gangsta, Scalped. That was a TV movie. Snowfall, Hashtag, Black, Image, Burkaka, and Borders? I never heard of any of these things. None of these click for me. All right, now let's see the other guy. I'm guessing he probably has. Yeah, it looks like he's on the same things. He looks like a rapper, this dude. Yeah, his credits are all the same. So these are a directing team. I don't think they're from Bollywood. I don't think so. I mean, he definitely doesn't look Indian. Although he might be, I mean, with a name like Bial Fala, I assume he's Muslim, maybe? Maybe he's Arab? That sounds like a very Arab name. JC, Scalped was a Vertigo comic they turned into Netflix show, I think. Oh, I remember that comic. That was hot for about 10 minutes. They turned that into a movie or a TV show? Oh, yeah. Modern day crime story set in the world of a Native American Indian reservation. I don't know. I didn't see that either. JC, are those Indian movies? I think Scalped is. Gangsta, I don't think is. Maybe. Maybe they are. Maybe they're directing some Bollywood stuff. I don't know. Let me look at some of the early ones. Black. That doesn't appear to be a Bollywood movie. Yeah, this takes place in the Bronx. I don't think so. I think these guys are American. They're just, they just have ethnic sounding names. JC. Yeah, that looks Indian. It may be that they are they just very much identify with their ethnicity, I think, and they're doing stuff like that. Like, I would do Italian stuff. And somehow, I don't know, they made it to the big time. Indie Phantom, Hollywoke. Well, I don't think the movie's woke. I just don't have any confidence it's very good. I mean, it looks kind of action-y, which would probably entertain me, but I have a feeling the plot points would probably bore me, and I'd probably tune out. JC, Muslim hat. Yes, I think that was a Muslim hat. I don't know what it's called. What is it called? There's a name for it. I don't know. Yeah, if these two guys, well, they got their hit movie, I think. And that's a very loose, I'm using that in the loosest possible term. Because these days the bar, I think, is so low for a hit. For these guys to deliver a movie that didn't lose money, I think I think Hollywood's going to be like, oh, they didn't lose money. But that's out of how many movies? I mean, out of the last three, I think it's one. So, and it hasn't happened yet. It could drop off a cliff next week, and then maybe they don't make it. But I think that that movie will make money. I don't think it's going to make a ton of money, but I think it's going to make some money. But Garfield's definitely doing well. Indie Phantom? No, this one is on par with the Bay films, according to good sources. JC. Maybe they just have a money connection to get movies funded, rich uncle or something. Indie Phantom. Bay has a cameo. Oh, okay. Well, Bay didn't he direct the first one? I think he did. I believe he directed the first, possibly the first two. All right. So here's Bad Boys 2. Yeah, Michael Bay directed the first two. And that's why I kind of like them. Because they're good action-y nonsense. Before everything went to hell. That was the good times before the dark times. JC, first two, yeah. I mean, you got to hand it to them. They're on their fourth movie. So, and with this, I think they might get a fifth movie out of this. They might actually get a fifth one. Indie Phantom reported to be a crowd pleaser. Finally. I hear that the rumor is that Will Smith had sort of finally had enough and wanted to do cool stuff and he didn't care anymore. So that may be the reason. Like, he's at the point in his career that he has to do something cool. Like, he knew this movie was sort of a make or break situation for him. He needs a hit. So, like, people on the set saying, oh, don't do that. That's not inclusive. And he's just saying, shut up. Get off this set. We've got to do this. Stop screwing it all up. So, I could totally see that. I don't know. Is he still with that woman? Or maybe she said it. Maybe she gave everybody instructions. I don't know. Martin Lawrence seems to be out to lunch to some extent. I'm not sure what his deal is. He seemed kind of out of it at the premiere. I don't know what they're going to do for the next premiere in the next movie, but I assume they're going to wheel him out and try to make another one. Indie Phantom. Bad Boys 2 is my sheet, and Hot Chicks Bayhem style. That's what every movie needs. Hot chicks. Bayhem style and every other kind of style. Speaking of hot chicks, there's a good Sydney Sweeney jiggle video going around, if you missed it. I don't know, it was on my phone or else I'd pull it up. Number 3 is If Imaginary Friends. I don't know what this movie is. It's a kids movie, 8 million. Garfield made 10. It's number 3. It was number 3 last week. It's number 3. This movie's been out for 4 weeks, and it's number 3. And it's a kids movie. Garfield is a kids movie. That's number 2. It was number 1 last week. It almost was number 1 this first week, and that's a kids movie. So we got 2 kids movies in the running for the top movies of the United States. That is pretty damn sad. That tells me adults are only going to movies because they're taking their kids, and that's it. So, number 4 is a new movie called The Watchers. Now, this is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter directing the movie. This isn't her first movie. I think she's directing it, or did he? I forget. I think she directs it. I know she's in it, I think. Or is that the other movie? I don't know. They're cranking out a lot of movies. No. She directed it. She wrote it. No, it's a different movie she's in. This to me is a very sort of contrived movie. JC, parents want something to bring their kids to. I guess. Who wants to bring their kids to the movies, though? That sounds expensive, number one. A pain in the ass, number two. But, sure. This movie, it looks very contrived. Basically, a group of friends go out into the woods. They get captured and they wake up in a weird, almost like a viewing station where they're watched. Thus the watchers, and then they're trying to figure out why people are watching. It's basically a Twilight Zone episode. John Adams is here. Hello, Mr. President. I'm skipping ahead a bit, but why on earth are there two Lord of the Rings movies in the top 10? You guys are anxious to get through the box office today. I know, it's insane, isn't it? It's because they re-released them because there's nothing to see. There's nothing out in theaters, and in desperation, these guys are re-releasing their own damn movies. Now, to some extent, I think it's a good idea. But I think you should have, I don't know, maybe cut the price and just... I think in every movie theater, say with more than 10 screens, you really ought to have one screen just dedicated to old movies. Maybe two at this point. And just rerun movies at a cut rate. Like Lord of the Rings, you should show Lord of the Rings for $5. That would be a good price. People would go to see it. No previews. It's an old movie. Just show the damn... It's too long to show previews, really. You're going to tack on another half hour? Lord of the Rings? No thanks. Just show the damn movie, and then everybody's happy. Maybe sell some food. But I don't like the look of the Watchers. It feels too contrived to me. It's just, to me, it's like a Twilight Zone that's going to be stretched out over 90 minutes. And then I guess there's going to be some shocking revelation at the end, but... Number 5, dropping from 4, is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is still in the top 5 at 5.4 million in its 5th week. I don't know why people keep liking these movies, but expect more because this one made money. 160 million worldwide. We're already at money. 359 million worldwide. So that's going to happen again. But here's the big story. Furiosa dropping from 2 to 6. Ouch. Elliot, ouch. This is a disaster. It's only in its 3rd week and it's dropped to 6. In a field like this movie, I don't believe this movie's good when I see something like this. This tells me, no, this movie isn't any good. You can tell me all day that people are hating on it for other reasons, but I mean, people just don't want to see it. It's a dumb idea, in my view. It's 144 million currently. It's not even at production budget levels yet. Indie Phantom, Hollywood. Nothing to see here. Ain't that the truth? All the things you could have done. All the things you could have done. Furiosa. Hey, I'm a big fan of North by Northwest. And in the opening scene, Cary Grant is sitting in a hotel lobby. And this is in the early 60s, late 50s. And a bellhop comes out with a sign that says Kaplan. Because he's got a phone call. So Cary Grant, who's not George Kaplan, gets up and he starts heading out. But because he gets up at that moment, there are a bunch of spies watching, and they kidnap Cary Grant and the movie starts. Because they think he's George Kaplan. He's not. He just happened to get up at that particular moment, and it's just a coincidence, and now he's caught up in this spy thing. So, Furiosa, to me, is like you made a movie like this. You said, oh, do you like North by Northwest? And I went, yeah, I love that movie. And then you said, well, guess what? We're doing a spin-off movie about the bellhop who was carrying that sign. And I'd be like, why? Why are you doing this? And they'd be like, well, you like North by Northwest, don't you? Yeah, but he's not the guy from North by Northwest. He's just some other guy who was in the previous movie. He's a supporting character. That's what Furiosa is. She's just a supporting character. She's no one special. They could have made her someone special. They could have made her the love interest for Mad Max. That would have made it a different movie. That would have made it the stakes much higher. John Adams. How does film distribution to theaters work? Do they still ship film reels to theaters that they can reuse, or are they required to ship them back? It's all digital now? My understanding is it's all digital now. They have a network and they access the movies. Sometimes there's flash drives involved with like codes, so you can't just access the movies. You know, they don't want people to download them and copy them, so there's all sorts of code keys and stuff to keep it legit, is my understanding. But of course anything digital can be hacked, so it happens anyway. But my understanding is the big theaters have like a digital distribution, and that's most theaters, right? So you got AMC and a few others. All the little guys, I don't even know if they still do actual film anymore. I don't think they do. I know there are still theaters that show films. They may still put them out some places. But I went behind the scenes on a little mini tour of the projection booth system in my local, at that time it was Regal Cinemas, now it's an AMC. And they showed us, oh, we've got this network, and we download the movie, and then we put it up here. So it's, you know, basically when you download a movie or stream a movie at home, you're doing the same thing the movie theater is. Which is why I think movie theaters are dying. Indie Phantom. Fury Road set up the feminine foolhardiness. I guess, or the feminist. Does that say feminist? Yes, it does. Feminist foolhardiness. Yeah, who cares? Who cares? The movie's called Mad Max. The movie was called North by Northwest, not Bellhop guy who's trying to reach George Kaplan about his phone call. I don't care about Furiosa. If you had made her Mad Max love interest, maybe you would have had something there. Maybe I'd be like, okay, this is the woman who will eventually hook up with Mad Max, and they'll be the greatest post-apocalyptic murder team in history. And then maybe you could have got me, but no. They imply, somebody was saying, I think last week, that she's gay, or it's implied she's gay. Like, oh, Jesus. How much more will we have to suffer of this rainbow? Oh, eat the rainbow, eat it. I don't want to eat the rainbow. You're gonna love it. Indie Phantom. Yeah, around 2011, most all cinemas were converted, another hastening their downfall. Yes. Yeah. It's kind of a neat system, though. I'll say that. I mean, and going to the theaters, you do get something. But the problem is, you also get a ton of commercials, and it's a half hour before you see the actual film. And that really is unacceptable now. It's just unacceptable. I don't even want to see the previews anymore because I see them all ahead of time. They're on YouTube anyway. So the next step is to think about something entertaining to show us. So, like, one of the things I was thinking they could do is bring back short cartoons to play ahead of the movie. That would be fun. You know? Do a Looney Tunes or a Animaniacs or whatever. Just do some cartoons. Do a Shrek short or Gru short or something. That would be fun. Indie Phantom. I like your pitch for the Bellhop movie. Great vehicle for Tim Chalamet. He is perfect. The perfect bellhop. Yeah, he'd be the perfect age too. Excuse me, Mr. Kaplan, bellhop. Rated R for adult situations. John Adams. Thanks, y'all. I was curious if there was some sort of financial incentive to show old movies since theaters would already have the movie reels. Yeah, and there was. I'm not sure how the reels worked. I don't think a lot of movie theaters kept them for very long. I think they were still technically the property of the studio and then would be shipped back. But then along the way, some would get lost and stolen or kept for whatever reason. And I don't think they kept track of them all that well, especially if it was a small theater or whatever. But I gotta imagine it, like guys like Quentin Tarantino and Christopher Nolan will probably insist to the studios, no, you got to make some print copies too, because we need that for, certain venues. That they probably still use projectors in LA in certain select theaters, like Chinese Man Theater or something like that. I don't know. Or for certain premieres, they do it. But I think for the most part, it's gone. And it's probably why we get so many damn commercials, because it's easy to just like drop them in digitally. But it's a shame, because I think that, like you said, it took something away from it, and it also made it easy for these guys to just keep jamming stuff into it. So what it should do is make it easier for you to see different things at the theater. So for instance, if you have a theater, like here's the way they should roll it out. Like if you redesign the overall system, let's say you're the AMC, right? You have thousands of theaters all over the United States, and you've got a bunch of movies in distribution. Each individual theater owner should be able to pick and choose from a list of movies based on their taste, what they think their audience wants, the location of the country, or state that they're in. So let's say you have, 15 screens, but you might have the choice of 25 different movies. So you could pick a couple of different movies, which would be a good strategy, because some of those movies, let's say, some random theater owner in Iowa has eclectic taste, and he keeps picking all these bizarre movies. Maybe people go see him, maybe they don't. But one time he picks a movie and it's huge. Like, people can't stop talking about it. And then some of the other AMC guys hear the buzz, they start picking it up too. And the next thing you know, this rather obscure movie that would normally get distribution maybe burns up the network, because maybe they got a bunch of other failed movies that aren't doing anything, and people start swapping them out. That's another thing too. You got a turd like Furiosa on one of your screens, you should be able to, after 2 weeks, go, oh, let's cut back on this. I'm not going to show this on 2 screens for the next month and a half. Let's cut it at 2 weeks to 1 screen, because you're probably obligated to show it at least, and then get something else in there. And then that would give, other movies a chance, and it would give the theaters some kind of different content. Storebang is here. Hello, Storebang. I'd like to see a movie from the POV of the generic expendable henchman. A day in the life sort of thing. Spoiler, he dies at the end. They have a movie like that. I forget what it's called, but it stars Colin Mockery. And he's one of the henchmen, and he's in a team of 3. And the premise is their villain gets killed, and then one of the henchmen wants to become a villain. It's a live action thing too, and it's a comedy. JEC Marathon, a TV show or movie series. Sell tickets for $1. Make your money on the popcorn and soda. Possibly, you could do it that way, but then you would have a lot of people like me who would cheap out and not pay for anything. We'd sneak in food. I think you should probably do it the other way. Charge for the movie. Give away some popcorn. Like, give away a small popcorn to anybody who wants it, because it'll make people thirsty, and then they have to buy the soda. Indie Phantom. Yeah, I operated a university art house circuit during the film era. I had to literally carry all those heavy ass prints to the bus station daily as they were shipped to the next venue or returned. There you go. To a distributor. Indie Phantom. Disney forcing theaters to keep Inside Out 2 for 100 days? That's true? Huh. See, yeah, I'm not surprised by that because they're Disney. So what are you going to do? Say no? Okay. Well, you can't show any Disney movies then. Oh, well, we don't want that. Well, then you better show Inside Out for 100 days in your theater. So I guess you just sacrifice it. But even Disney within the studio system itself should have a more flexible thing. First off, Disney should be making more movies. They should be making more cheaper movies instead of these giant tent poles they keep crapping out. So these $200 million turds, they should be making 10 movies. And then they would have that flexibility. They'd have so much content they could say, okay, some of this goes on Disney Plus, some of this will be in the mix for extra movies. You just make a backup movie for the Furiosa situation. Zebek's Demise is here. Might be better not to show Disney now a days. That's true too. But like in the case of Furiosa, you have a movie. It was probably on 2-3 theaters when it launched because they were expecting big things. The moment it tanks, there should be a second movie that you could throw up on, you should drop it down to a screen. I mean, still keep it in the theaters. It might pull out of it after a couple of weeks, but, instead of wasting those extra screens that you obviously don't need, throw up one of these backup movies. Maybe it'll do well. Maybe it'll do well and make its money and then some. But that's a huge drop from 2 to 6. Fall Guy drops from 5 to 7. Again, I'm surprised this movie did so poorly. 2.7 million. I'm probably going to stream it. 165 mil. It made its budget and a little bit extra, but I don't know. That's might be break even. It's definitely not money, I would say. Unless, they seem to spend a lot of money on the advertising. Store Bang, Herbie the Love Bug, the Shaggy DA. Come on, Disney, it's too easy. Yeah, those are classics. You could throw them back up on the screen. Offer them for $1, $5. People bring their kids. Oh, Joan, you are just too much. I'm going to put you over here. There you go. You're still in the action. Don't worry. Ugh. Okay. Now, number 8 is Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings. So, they're trotting that out again. And it did 2.4 million, so it's not a stupid idea. It's not a dumb idea. How much does this movie continue to make? Oh, wow. We can probably push this over $1 billion one day, I'm going to guess. You keep bringing it out. Not if you remake it, though. 893 million worldwide, and it made 2.4 million, so I say you bust out the Lord of the Rings movies every year, would be my decree. Indie Phantom. They kind of killed the Herbie with Lindsay Lohan vehicle, as I remember. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. I'm a huge Herbie the Love Bug fan. I know. When I was a kid, I used to love it. The best sidekick was Buddy Hackett. The dirtiest comedian who ever lived, but his Hollywood persona was super squeaky clean. But my parents went to go see him live and took me and my brother before he died. I think he's dead now. But he was one of the most filthy Borscht Belt comedians in the history of comedy. I mean, he would say the raunchiest things. And he had this wacky voice. He talked out of the side of his mouth. He was pretty nutty. And so he was the nutty sidekick in the original Herbie the Love Bug movie. the comedy relief. Joan, if I put you down, are you going to be good? All right. Here you go. Be good. Oy. Joseph Ricci is here. Hello. Hi, how are you today? I'm fine. Are you an AI, Joseph Ricci? Indie Phantom. Ian McKellen reportedly returning as Gandalf in Warner Lord of the Ring continuation. He is 85. That's okay. If he dies, he'll return as Ian McKellen the White. And in our darkest hour in Hollywood, Ian McKellen will return. Joseph Ricci. That's an awesome website. I can't read what it is. It is called The Numbers. Here, I'll scroll up just so you can see at the top. There you go. And yeah, it tracks everything. Now, I noticed, though, sometimes I go back to the weekend box office, like on Monday or Tuesday, and there are other movies on here that we missed. So there's a handful of movies that don't get on the list right away because I guess they're just accumulating the info as it comes in as best they can. Because keep in mind, like, it is Sunday. People are still going to the movies. I mean, it's 7:40 as I'm recording this. And people are still in the movie theaters, you know, and buying tickets for 9 p.m., 9:30. Number 9 is Lord of the Rings The Two Towers, made $1.9 million. So that's how good this franchise is. Let's see. How did this one do in terms... Oh, this one's even closer to $1 billion. This one's at $921 million. How did that work? How did this one make more money? That's crazy. That's nuts. You're telling me there are people who skipped the first one? I think I got it. Joseph Ricci. Hell no. You are not an AI. Okay. Just checking. Although that's just what a really sophisticated AI would say. Yeah, what kind of maniac goes to the Two Towers and doesn't see the first movie? That's a lot. That's not an insignificant amount of people. Or is that just some girlfriends who went on a, oh, you know, I love the Lord of the Rings. You want to go to the Lord of the Rings? Oh, you haven't seen the first movie. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'll go with this one. You don't have to take me to see the first one. I like you. Don't push it. Possibly. I can see some of the women I've dated saying that. Did you like it? Did you like the Two Towers? Yeah, it was great. Can we go now and stop talking about the movie? Then dropping Indie Phantom. They largely S the bed with that Hobbit trilogy. Yeah, that's what I hear. I still haven't seen it. I'm kind of like, I don't want to see it because of that. I don't think it was an S-ing the bed like, you know, we made it woke or we did something stupid, other than they try. I think what Peter Jackson was trying to do, and this is what I heard and saw from the clips, was he was trying to create something more like the book where it was aimed at children. It was more whimsical. And the idea being like the Lord of the Rings was at a dark time in Middle Earth. And this was, the Hobbit was at a time when everything was still vibrant and alive and whimsical. And, you know, and that's kind of what they tried to do. But it sounds like it didn't work. I think the problem is they stretched it out into too many movies. Indie Phantom. Probably folks waited for the DVD release of Fellowship. Perhaps. Indie Phantom. The Five Armies really blew it. John Adams. I like the Hobbit movies, but they added a bunch of nonsense with the elf-dwarf love story. Oh, yeah, that was the new stuff, right? Yeah. LeMay. All the girls in my 6th grade class were crushing on Orlando Bloom. Yeah, he was the go-to. Back in my day, they would have put him on the cover of Tiger Beat magazine. He would have been a heartthrob for the teen girls to read in their magazines. JEC. Hobbit is unwatchable. JEC is a harsh Harsh critic. Padded out 120-page book to 3 movies with Peter Jackson and Peter Jackson CGI Pratt humor. Yeah, that's what I heard. John Adams. To be fair to the Hobbit movies, the book doesn't really talk about the War of the Five Armies in detail at all, so they kind of had to start to make it up. Well, Indie Phantom. First one was most of the Hobbit book, and after that they stretched it out. Yeah, that's a shame. That's the worst way to do it, too. Because you got to figure, like, if you're a fan of The Hobbit and you go to see the first Hobbit movie and you're watching it and it's most of the book, you got to be sitting there going, oh, wow, are they going to finish this thing and then do something else? And then they don't finish it, and then you're like, you watch the second movie and you're like, okay, well, we were pretty far along in the story. What the hell are they doing? And then by the time you get to the third movie, it's just like, all right, come on. Yeah, I don't think it was a good creative decision. Like, you know, as much of an egomaniac I am, I wouldn't presume to say, oh, you know what? I think I could write a bunch of extra chapters for Tolkien, and it'll, you know, it'll just jibe. Like, come on, guys. Give the man some credit. It's like, oh, you know, I was going to make one movie for Hamlet, but I think I could stretch it out over 3 movies. I'll just add some more to Shakespeare. I'm sure people will go along. What next? They're going to make a Shakespeare miniseries with, like, King Lear. JC, Hobbit has barely enough material for a single movie, and they stretched it out to 3 movies for no good reason. Oh, there was a reason. And they would say it's good. It's called money. money. Yeah, no, what they should have done is just done one Hobbit movie and then gone to the Silmarillion or whatever, maybe. I know, that would have been going back further, but at least it would have stopped Amazon from doing Rings of Power. John Adams. I would be happy with with an edit that turned it into 2 movies. I don't think 2-hour movie would be quite enough time. Oh, I think it would be long, but I think you could probably do it in under 3, I'm guessing, but maybe not. Indie Phantom. According to Midnight's Edge, the next movie is based on even slimmer material, like incomplete Tolkien notes. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm sure they won't go too far off the reservation and subvert our expectations with Gollum. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. And that's really the problem with it. You know, it's like they hit upon something with Lord of the Rings. Good. Made a bunch of money. And then they were just like, well, we should make more money. And instead of say, I don't know, there are plenty of fantasy books from that era, or just after that era, other than Tolkien. There were plenty of fantasy books in the 70s when Dungeons and Dragons was huge. I'm thinking of the one, there were 2 characters. There was a barbarian character, and then a guy called the Grey Mouser. I forget the name of the book series, but they were in the Monster Manual. And I'm sure they have a bunch of books. There's a million fantasy books out, sword and sorcery stuff. They made some based on Dungeons and Dragons monsters. JC, I went to the first Hobbit movie with my ex. I went to the bathroom while they were sitting around talking about their swords. When I got back, they were still talking about their stupid swords. Wow. Indie Phantom, I am done with Andy Serkis and his googly eyes. Okay. I met Andy once. He was very upset at that time that he was not being nominated for an Oscar. He felt he got shafted for some reason. I forget his reasoning. And then, you know, he seemed to talk a lot about Andy Serkis. Zevek's Demise. They could do the Amber books. Yeah, there's one, unless they screw it up. JC, Michael Moorcock. I remember that name. Is that the oh gosh, is that the guy Razor Fist talks about? Yeah, I think it is, right? I can't think of the character's name at this moment. I'm still a little fried. John Adams, Dragonlance would be a cool to take the core books and turn into movies. Dragons of Autumn, Twilight, and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of them. They're just all over the place. Zebek's Demise, they would probably screw it up. They probably would. Yeah, they'd probably make it woke. I mean, look at the fantasy movie they put out with Millie Brown, or whatever her name is. The Stranger Things girl. So they did Damsel, where the damsel kills the dragon. Ah, showed you patriarchy. Ah. How'd that movie do again? Oh, right. They didn't release it in theaters, I don't think. I think they just put it out on Netflix or one of the streamers. JC Elric. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Elric. I don't know if they could do Elric justice, quite frankly. That's probably one they would definitely screw up, because Elric's pretty badass. Indy Phantom. Andy Serkis did the second Venom, which was apparently not great. Oh, wow. Did he direct that? Because that movie, I hear, is just not good. So maybe Let There Be Carnage. He did direct that. Oh, boy. Why are they giving him another... Why do they keep giving these guys movies? All right, let's see what else Andy has directed. He's fine for an actor. Let's see. Oh, we only want the director's credits. So let's take out the actor and look at director. He's developing Animal Farm. He directed Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle. I don't know. Oh, that's the character from the Jungle Book. He directed something called The Ruins of Empires, Breathe, and Heavenly Sword. That was a video game. What was Breathe? I know that movie. Looks like it was a romantic thing. Yeah, that's not a great rundown. Zebek's Demise. They wrecked the Wheel of Time. Yep, I called it. I called that one. And I didn't even read Wheel of Time. I had known about it. But just watching the between watching the trailer and what I knew about it, I knew they couldn't help but wreck that movie. Or a series. I think it was a series, right? John Adams, D&D, Honor Amongst Thieves was decent, but not the best. That's about all you can hope for in a D&D movie, I think. Indy Phantom, Damsel looked dismal. Indy Phantom, Circus will play the animals in Animal Farm. Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it could be pretty cool. If he's director, he shouldn't play all the parts. You know, I'm sure he'll play one. But, I don't know, will people even get Animal Farm at this point? Or will they just go, wow, those animals really came up with a really good civilization up until the end. Maybe we should try that. That system those animals came up with, that sounds really familiar. Yeah, people are too stupid to get a lot of metaphors these days. Zebek's Demise, LOL. JC, Animal Farm has been in production hell for 15 years. Yeah, they're trying to make a positive spin on communism, I assume. Let me get this straight. You've done 16 drafts of this thing, and at every time the animals can't figure out a good form of government? Yeah. Why is that? I don't know. It's almost like communism doesn't work. Indy Phantom. They will subvert and pervert Animal Farm. I'm not sure how they can. Like, they would have to give it a happy ending, which would be weird and wouldn't work at all. I think that would be the only way they could actually subvert it. is give it a happy ending. That would be very strange. Very strange. We're getting back to the list. The Strangers Chapter 1 made 1.8 million. Again, ka-ching, horror movie. There's always money in horror. Always money in horror. Remember Arrested Development? There's always money in the banana stand. No, there's always money in a horror movie. Just don't spend too much money. It's good as gold. It's like writing a check to yourself. So, to all you budding filmmakers out there, abandon all your dreams of making a rom-com or a drama or a comedy rom-com dramedy. Make yourself a horror movie. Make the money first. And then, after you make a hit horror movie, make something else. Indie Phantom, they will make it a trilogy. Oh, God. That would be a nightmare. No one would see that, though. They can't make Animal Farm into a trilogy. They absolutely can't. That would just be... Maybe that's why they're in development hell, but... That book is short. That book is super short, if I'm recalling correctly. It's barely a novel. It's really a novella. Number 11, Hayaku, the Dumpster Battle from Crunchyroll. Storebank, comedy horror, okay. It's a fine line. See, the problem is this. The horror always works. Doesn't matter what country you're from, what culture you're in, horror works because it's just scary, right? So a werewolf or a vampire or any kind of monster that jumps out and bites people on the neck or whatever, that's going to work in China. It's going to work in England. It's going to work in South America and Africa and the United States. Everywhere, everybody will get that. But the moment you make a joke, then you got a problem. So, for instance, let's say you make a joke about a graveyard. All right? You're doing a comedy horror. That makes sense, right? In Asia, graveyards are different. Right? People go to the graveyard to pay respects to their ancestors. There's a lot of people who are Shinto in like Japan. They're Buddhist. It doesn't look like a graveyard in the West. In fact, it's not that creepy. The Western creepy graveyards are different than the creepy graveyards in Asia. Same thing with, say, Muslim countries. Different. The rules for funeral and burials are different. So, Muslims, I know this is true with Jewish people, especially Orthodox Jews. I think it may be true with Muslim people. They have to be buried within a certain amount of days. That's part of the deal. You have to be in the ground within, I want to say like 3 days, something like that. So, and in Western TV shows and movies, you can kind of like cut religion out. You can't really cut religion out in most of the areas of the world. People aren't embarrassed by their religion in, Muslim countries or in Asia countries, or the only place they're embarrassed by their religion is Western countries. Oh, the Christians. Oh, no. So that's a real problem when you're doing comedy horror. And if you're going to make any jokes about that, you got to realize that, you make some joke about the funeral, it maybe not going to fly in Asia or wherever. And let's say you get around that, and you're just going to make very sort of general, broad jokes. Even that is hard to make work because, for instance, slapstick is still very big in Asia. So, up until a few years ago, but I think it's still okay, guys in drag were considered kind of funny in Asian cinema. Like a guy who for whatever reason, has to put on a dress and pretend to be female, and he's obviously doing a very high voice. That's considered hilarious by certain standards in Asia. Here, it's like you wouldn't even get a laugh. People would be like, what is he doing? And then some people now would be offended by that. So the kind of comedy you do too, the problem is comedy. It just doesn't translate. Comedy has to have a shared experience to work. If I tell you a joke and you can't share the experience, the joke will never work. It'll just never work. If I make a very South Jersey joke about pork roll, you're not from South Jersey, you just won't get it. You just won't get it. It'll go, I don't get it. I'll have to explain the joke to you. So you have to keep the comedy very broad. So the only kind of jokes you could do jokes about relationships between men and women. You have to do universal kind of jokes about family, mothers and fathers, kids and parents, brothers and sisters. All those kinds of jokes generally will work. And you have to mainly keep them in that box. You could maybe get away with a couple of more localized jokes, let's say, because, for me, as an avid film goer of foreign cinema, I like to hear jokes from other countries, just because then I sort of pick it apart and then try to figure out the cultural thing behind that joke or behind that bit. So one of my favorite zombie movies is called Juan of the Dead, and Juan of the Dead is a Cuban horror movie, and it takes place in Cuba, communist Cuba, and the premise is Juan starts a business basically killing zombies. Like, nobody else is killing them for some reason. It doesn't quite make sense to me, but the funny parts about it, besides, the normal zombie stuff, is it takes place in Cuba, so nothing in the Cuban government works. So, there's a scene where a bunch of characters are waiting for a bus, and they're all complaining the bus is always, always, always late and might not even come, which I found hilarious. And then I think a zombie shows up and Juan has to save everybody. But there's all kinds of jokes like that in Juan of the Dead. But for the average moviegoer, they're not going to sit there and pick that apart. They're just going to go, oh, I don't get that. Oh, I don't get that either. Oh, I don't get that. So, yeah, it's the comedy. The comedy. All right, let me go back to... Boy, I missed a lot of comments. Sorry. Make it a true comedy horror. Okay, no. Store bang. Dang it. I mean, it might work, but if it emphasizes the horror enough, maybe. Like the Pineys would probably work overseas. The jokes probably wouldn't land, but there would be enough horror in it that as long as about 50% of the jokes land, the rest of them, a foreign audience will go, well, I didn't get that, but this is still pretty cool. So it has to be like, you're at another level if you're doing that. See, with the Pineys, a lot of the jokes are based on, a lot of it's pop culture, depending on the character, but a lot of it is family based. Some of the jokes are just the situations between the characters. So that stuff will all fly, but it's like once in a while I drop like a pop culture reference, and it just, for someone in China will just go, whoop. LeMay, a sports anime? I don't know. Zebek's Demise. Isn't there an anime about soccer? I mean, people don't like anime in general, is the problem. Like, I know people who, they don't watch cartoons at all. Like, they hate animation. A cinematographer friend of mine, he famously just hates animation. He won't even go see Up. I said, oh, you got to see Up. It's so good. And he's like, I'm not seeing Up. It's animated. I don't want to see that. You don't have a chance of hell of him seeing anime, even if there's sports in it. And he likes sports, so maybe there's a little crossover there, but not much. John, but like anime's so big in Asia, it doesn't matter. You don't need to have it hit big here. John Adams, the only farm cinema worth watching anymore is Clarkson's. There you go. I hear that's great. LeMay at Zemix, yep. Indie Phantom. I saw Strangers Chapter 1, and they were smart to shoot all three simultaneously. Oh, neat. Actually, kind of smart because they set up a bunch of red herrings, which locals are actually the mass, spoilers, killers. That sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty smart. And these horror movies are so low budget. Now, personally, I don't like movies like The Strangers. To me, it's just a bunch of murders that don't really, I don't know, don't really fly for me. But maybe if you say it's good, I might check it out. But yeah, I mean, that's really smart, especially since the first one already made money. Zebek's Demise. Funny, my comment about communism got blocked. It did? How dare you? How dare you, YouTube? John Adams. In the USA, we need to have picnics in cemeteries. They're all locked up now, though. That's a thing they do in Mexico, right? Day of the Dead. Not so big here. Indie Phantom. Richard Dreyfuss still doing cross-dress comedy. He is? He did it again? Storebang. Keep it relatable, kids. It's just tough overseas. Once you leave the country, I mean, even just in Canada, look how commie Canada is now. They're so communist and so woke. I don't even know what would fly over there in terms of comedy. And they have no Bill of Rights. People forget that about Canada. They don't have a Bill of Rights. There was a famous, semi-famous in my world, comic book guy who was he was famous for about a year or two while he was doing these outrageous comics. He would do these very topical, outrageous comics about like OJ murdering more people and various news figures, and it was all very over the top stuff. And he was like he tried to bill himself like a renegade comic book publisher, and he had fans in Canada. And the Canadian government just stopped the comics at the border. They wouldn't let him through. And then I think they went after him for some sort of obscure obscenity law or whatever. JEC, most horror movies are tongue-in-cheek funny anyway. That's true, depending. Unless they're super, super serious. LeMay, I heard Chinese people don't like Ghost. That is true. We talked about that on one of the streams. They will absolutely not put Ghost in their theater, like Ghost movies. I've heard from my live stream, which I rely on 100% for information. John Adams. Tucker and Dale versus Evil was a great example of horror comedy. That was a good one. That, to me, though, is an example of a movie that probably won't play very well outside of the United States or outside of Western audiences, because most of the comedy is reliant on the trope that hillbillies are murderous, and that, in a horror movie, it's the hillbillies that kill everybody, not save them. That's kind of the whole point of the movie. But John Adams, anime has a weird model tied to the manga and hurts the anime story in the end. I just think there's very few anime that is cinematic and works as a movie. Cowboy Bebop, all day long. Like that series is different. It was always very cinematic. It was always very dramatic and crazy and funny, and it had a very great sense of the story in itself. It was always doing these great peaks and valleys. So that it's a shame they screwed up the live action version, because you really could have done some stuff with those characters. But that's the exception, not the rule. A lot of anime, to me, from my perspective, is just too. It's almost too fast, too much, too, squeaky voices and weird humor. That's, I'm sure, very funny with Japanese audiences, but to me, it's just annoying. Whereas Cowboy Bebop didn't have any of that, or very little, I'll say. Even Cowboy Bebop had a tiny bit of it. Indie Phantom. Yeah, I am not into animation, except the more adult stuff we used to get, like heavy metal, American pop, etc. I love animation, but these days, my heyday was Fox animation domination with The Simpsons, Family Guy, Bob's Burgers before everything went woke. It was great. It would be a great night. I would just zone out on Sundays. Now I do live streams, but back then I would watch TV. I'd be like, I'd throw my phone aside and be like, don't bother me. I'm watching my cartoons. And I did that for like 10 years. My Sundays were cartoons, baby, because I grew up with Saturday morning cartoons. And I used to, it never missed that. And then that ended. Or basically I got older, I couldn't do it, or I don't know what happened. It just slowly went out of vogue. And, but then I switched over to animation domination and Adult Swim. After watching the Fox shows, I'd end the night watching all the Adult Swim stuff until like 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes. Because some of those shows were amazing too. But then comedy died. Comedy died in America. Partly these companies killed it. And now you can't do anything unless you're a bigot or a racist or whatever. John Adams, is there a name for the style of animation that's roughly hand-drawn like heavy metal and the other 70s animation? I don't think there's a specific name for it. I mean, it is hand-drawn animation. And the newer stuff is like digital. A few years ago, I was at a comic book show and they were marketing a piece of software, and the idea was, and this is what they use today, but it's much more sophisticated. I think they could do a lot more with it. Back then, what it was, you could draw, for instance, Homer taking a step, but you'd only have to draw him twice. Whereas back in the day, for cell animation, you'd have to draw every increment of a step. But what they developed was a computer model that would scan in those two images and then give you the result of Homer going from this position to that position, and they would move the limbs in order to achieve that. And so that saved the animators a lot of time, and now, I mean, they could probably do all kinds of crazy stuff. It's still going to be not as, I mean, there's something about that's really cool about the hand-drawn animation. And even the stuff that was rotoscoped, where they take film footage and then they basically paint over it, and then the cartoon characters are moving like real people. Zebek's Demise, Macross, I watched a little of that. I couldn't get into it. Indie Phantom, a lot of rotoscoping, John, which is like tracing over the action footage. Yeah, I was just saying that. Indie Phantom anime is a lot of screaming mostly. Well, you know what some of that is? It's like, and a friend of mine who used to translate cartoons from Japanese to English, he used to do the subtitles and try to dub them as well because he was such an anime fan. He told me like a lot of Japanese words, they just didn't really translate. So like that's why Speed Racer would always talk in this weird sort of halted way, because they were trying to match up the new dialogue, which was a translation of the Japanese dialogue, to his lips somewhat. So they would cut out things and they would shorten things. But to say it in English generally took longer. So what they would have is Speed Racer talking, and he would talk like this, and then he would say all kinds of things, and then this is what's happening, and it would always end with that for some reason. But it had to do with the way the mouth was moving in the animation, because back then they couldn't do much about it. Now they have an AI. An AI could take a cartoon animation. They could take AI, and this is what the translators are really worried about. Now it's sort of big business. The AI can take it. Not only will it translate everything, it'll move the mouth in a different way in order to words to match the mouth. So it'll just change the mouth. So it'll be like it was written in English and voiced in English. And it'll sound like the same voices. John Adams, anyone that liked Cowboy Bebop should check out Samurai Champloo. I did check that out. Directed by the same guy. That's pretty good too. I like a Cowboy Bebop better, but I did like Samurai Champloo. Especially the first episode is really cool. LeMay, I think Toon Boom has something like that. Interesting. Indie Phantom, Pixar animation is boring, in my humble opinion. or in my opinion. Garfield movie is super generic. Something like South Park has more humor and charm. Yeah, and you're always going to get that with comedy. That's like Aqua Teen Hunger Force. You know, you could always do that. But, you know, it all comes back to, see, like with comedy, there's only one rule. Make it funny. If it's not funny, get the F out. And because of that, people who do comedy, they just cut right to the chase. You know, I have to heighten this. I have to make this joke work. Okay, what do we need to do? We need to do these three things. You're not going to get bogged down in a bunch of drama or nonsense. You're just going to go right to the joke. That's all you're going to do. And because of that, you know, a lot of comedic cartoons or entertainment, you just don't need a lot. You just need it to be funny. If it's funny, and Aqua Teen Hunger Force to me was hilarious. It's funny. John Adams, the visibly noticeable hand-drawn animation aesthetic is highly attractive to me. Yeah, me too. Moving from one keyframe to the next with computers is called tweening. Thank you. I think it might get more hand-drawn looking in the future, but Indie Phantom, where is non-woke Pepe the Frog feature? Well, the problem with that is the guy who created Pepe the Frog is not too happy about his creation being used. I don't know that he's a liberal, but I think he's been attacked, you know, online. And then he came out very much against right-wing guys, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. This was a while ago. So I think he's kind of disowned the character. You know, so I think that character will only be a meme, but maybe someone will do so. I mean, maybe Cyberfrog is supposed to be something like that. I don't know. John Adams, the Japanese alphabet works on syllables. Their alphabet only has one letter that ends in a consonant. N, all the rest in a vowel. Interesting. I guess that's why they go, oh. Indie Phantom. What we learned today, comedy should be funny. Yes. Yes. And I keep saying that because apparently Hollywood has forgotten that. Hollywood keeps putting out movies, they call them comedies, and they're terrible. And there's not a single comedy moment in it. Like, I understand if you put out a comedy, you know, I've seen trailers for comedies, and I go, well, it's not, I don't really think it's funny, but I see they're trying comedy. I mean, they're trying to do comedy. Now they put out a movie, and they call it a comedy. It's not, it's so far from a comedy, I don't know what they were thinking. Honestly, don't know what they were thinking. So, you know, I can't remember the last funny comedy I saw. I guess it would have to be The Machine with Mark Hamill and what's his name? That comedian, Bert Kreischer? Is that his name? I forget how to say his last name. It's pretty funny. But yeah, it's few and far between. We are starved for good comedies. They just don't hire comedians anymore. Like, Kevin Hart's the only guy who's really working in Hollywood in comedies. Dave Chappelle should be getting movie deals. Dave Chappelle should be getting $100 million comedy movie deals left and right. If there was any justice in the world, they'd just say, Dave, here's $500 million. Make 3 movies. You can keep the rest, and we'll, you know, distribute them and market the hell out of them. He should get a 3-picture deal. Bert Kreischer, that's it. The Machine. Indie Phantom, The Machine. Thank you, John Adams and Indie Phantom. Yeah, that was the last sort of comedy. I mean, that's an actual comedy movie. And it's funny. It's pretty good. You know, it's not the funniest movie I ever saw, but it's got some good scenes in it. But man, they just haven't put one out in a long time. A long time. They just don't do them anymore. I mean, they don't want to greenlight them because they're afraid people on the internet are going to be mean to them. John Adams, the stand-up set he does is way better than the movie. Well, I assume. I think I've seen it at one point. But Dave Chappelle should have movies. Kreischer should get another movie. He did pretty good, I thought. Gosh, some of Joe Rogan's buddy. Joe Rogan should probably get a comedy movie to do. Joe Rogan could easily be bank. You give Joe Rogan a $50 million movie. The problem with Joe Rogan is $50 million ain't enough for him. What does he need $50 million? He could do his podcast for another year for $100 million. I mean, and I think he could do a funny movie about MMA fighters. That would be cool. That would be a cool movie. People love MMA, and they like Joe Rogan. So it'd be a fun... You know what they could do? They could do a comedy movie that's a parody of like a boxing movie, except it's MMA. You know, about a fighter, making his way to the top, but it's a comedy movie. I think that would be fun, and Joe Rogan could be in it, and maybe write it with his crew, and then they could all be in it, and then you'd hire a like realistic looking actor to be the fighter or whatever, but you could have like Jean-Claude Van Damme and other guys like that make cameos. That'd be fun. John Adams. He could go into the DMT realm and make some sort of deal with the machine elves. Yeah. He might just get really high and write something that makes no sense, but I'd be willing to give him some money if I was the studio. But the studio won't take that chance anymore because look at this. Look at what's not making money. Everything. And again, that comedy is not going to go overseas. So the movie companies, now that they're not making money, you can forget about comedies. You can forget the F about comedies. Because they know if they make a comedy, it's just for here. Maybe Canada, maybe the UK, maybe a couple of select markets depending on its subject matter. But comedy isn't going to go far. But I think a comedy about MMA fighters could work. I think that could work really well. You could do all sorts of parodies. Don't put Conor McGregor in it because we've established he can't act apparently. Oof, I hear that's unwatchable. That Roadhouse movie. Number 12, In a Violent Nature. Someone, I think it was Holly last week, said this movie isn't any good. It looks stylish though, I'll have to say. But it's just a slasher movie. But again, second week, it dropped by 70%. 3.6 million? We don't know the budget though. It might have a very low budget. See, that's the thing with horror movies. It could have a budget of $1 million. It could have a very low budget. I doubt that it does. It's IFC, but I don't know. Indie Phantom comedy was bank around Shaun of the Dead era. Yeah. There was always, look, even in that era, even in the 90s and 2000s, before the death of comedy, they weren't, like, comedies weren't big. They were acceptable. They weren't, the only time they thought they were big was prior to the world markets. Now that the world markets are so big, there's even less reason to do it. Because if you can't send this movie to India to make $100 million, they don't want to make it. But that being said, if you got a group of comedians together and you said, listen, we want to make a movie, but we're only going to spend $5 million on it, I'm sure they'd do it. And a movie that was $5 million that was even a little funny would probably do pretty good. The only movies I see as comedies that have come out are ones that are incredibly full of rainbow people. Like, there was some indie movie about a group of rainbow people. There were so many letters in this movie, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you them all. I forget what it was called. And it didn't even crack a mil or a half mil, I think, in its first weekend. Like, no, that is such a tiny audience that just ain't gonna work. John Adams' Hot Fuzz, I feel, was pretty niche with the British humor. Well, to some extent, yes, but it did have the whole cop angle, which is a little broader, and it was a parody of The Wicker Man, which, again, that's mostly British, but they remade it here, so, it had enough, I think. Indie Phantom, Adam Sandler, had a great run. Yeah, I didn't really like a lot of his movies, though. I mean, he's okay. I like the Zohan movie. I like that one a lot. I think that's the best one out of the Adam Sandler movies. And there was like one other I thought was okay. The rest I just kind of have no interest in. People have told me, no, you got to see them. They're good. But, I don't know. Indie Phantom, yeah, Hot Fuzz had great action. Yeah, that too. I really enjoyed Hot Fuzz. I like Hot Fuzz. I like Shaun of the Dead. What was the one about the end of the world cafe or something where the guys are fighting their own clones? That was pretty good. I like that one, even though nobody else liked it. All those movies are fun. I just like fun movies. They don't even have to be that funny. They have to be fun. They have to have cool action or crazy monsters or a crazy concept, and it just has to build. Indie Phantom, The Wicker Man remake, also hilarious comedy. Well, I did my own remake of The Wicker Man in Book 5 of the Pineys, by the way. So Book 5 of the Pineys is a parody of The Wicker Man. There, I said it. I sometimes ask people at shows, have you ever seen The Wicker Man? And 90% of them go, what? And I just go, damn it, nobody's seen this damn movie. But there's all sorts of like homages to The Wicker Man in that book. John Adams, The World's End, that's it. It's the last of the Cornetto trilogy. Cornetto trilogy. Yeah, I like that one. That was fun too. I wish they'd make more. Even Run Fatty Run, that was pretty good. I didn't mind that movie. I mean, they've made some good movies over in England, and they're funny. I don't know how well they play beyond England and the UK, but I think Simon Pegg has a great crossover. Although he's kind of maybe burned that bridge a little bit over the years, but LeMay, I only saw clips of The Wicker Man. Well, there's the original one has I believe Christopher Lee's in the original one. I think. It's from the 1970s. Yeah, 1973. Yeah, Christopher Lee. So this is what it gets super weird. It's like one of these super weird 70s movies. Edward Woodward's in it. The original Equalizer. Let's say none of the other guys I don't think you would remember, but they're all very old. But Christopher Lee's always great. LeMay, B Icon, LAB. Hello, LAB. Welcome to the show. Saw the original Wicker Man with Britt Eklund years ago on TV. Yeah, that's when I saw a lot of movies too, like from this era. I'd always see them on TV. They'd be edited slightly, all the cursing would be out of them. But, and every once in a while something totally crazy would be dropped out just for time. But for the most part, I've seen a lot of movies on TV with commercials. Because in the 70s, that's how you watched them if... before the days of VCRs, and I know you don't even know what a VCR is, DVDs and streaming and whatnot. Oh, you kids with your VCRs and cell phones. John Adams. I've never heard of The Wicker Man. Ah, it's pretty good. You should say it. It's creepy. Indie Phantom. Simon Pegg has a bit of woke virus. Just not as bad as Seth Rogen. Yeah. Don the Second is here. How we doing, Tony? How you doing, Don the Second? How goes the beats? Alex Ogle. Movie pitch. The Pineys. The swimsuit edition. Sydney Sweeney. Lingering close-ups. Scripts by Tuesday. You know the drill. Export potential will be huge. We'll be rich. Rich, I tells ya. Riches. Riches. Oh, I can't say the line from The Simpsons. Damn. Oh, there's a funny line from The Simpsons. Rich as the bad guys from Germany. Ah, it doesn't have the same ring. Indie Phantom. I do love, observe, and report a very anti-woke and hilarious Seth Rogen pre-TDS. I did like that movie, too. Ray Liotta's great in that, too. Don the Second. I saw Bad Boys 4 broke 100 million and thought to myself, wow, movies do not make as much as they used to anymore, especially with their budget. Well, that's not bad for now. I mean, it's back in the day, it probably would have done 100 million here or more. But yeah, but it's probably going to make its money. I think you're going to get a sequel. Don the Second. The Bees. LAB. Britt Eklund in Swedish, and they dubbed her voice, especially when she had to sing. Neat. It's like when they dubbed Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice when he played Hercules in that really old movie before he could, because they didn't think anybody could understand him with his stupid accent. Although in their defense, his accent was much thicker in the beginning. You know. Who is your daddy and what does he do? I can do Arnold Schwarzenegger. Why can't I do Trump? God, it drives me crazy I can't do Trump. Everybody's doing Trump now and I can't get the voice. I had it one stream. I was able to do Trump for a few sentences and then I just lost it. Drives me nuts. Don the Second. I'm going to see it soon. I heard it was all right. Okay. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, I think the guys who made the third one, which is, I hear, not great, I think maybe they took that to heart and they are trying to make a good movie. But then the rumor is that Will Smith doesn't give an F anymore. And he doesn't care about this woke BS, maybe, and that he wants to do something cool because he needs to get his career back on track. So maybe it's a badass movie. I mean, I saw some clips from it. It could be good. I mean, I like shoot 'em outs and explosions, so. John Adams. That is the one redeeming feature of the Acolyte. That Korean guy from Squid Games can barely speak English is the best part so far. LAB. Ha ha. Yeah, I heard he learned English just for this role. He didn't even know English. So that must be very tough, being an actor and trying to act in a language you don't natively speak. I can't even imagine what that's like. I've heard that South Korean soap operas are very big, and that sometimes American actors will go there and be in them, but they don't know Korean that well, but they're taught enough in order to get through their lines or whatever. Indie Phantom. Christopher Lee is in The Howling 2, a hilariously bad sequel with amazing Sybil Danning boobies that they show in a loop during the end credits. Wow, that sounds awesome. That sounds so awesome compared to the movies on this list. Doesn't that sound so awesome? Imagine, just imagine for a moment, everyone. A movie full of werewolves, Christopher Lee, and then boobies on a loop at the end of the movie. I mean, you'd be so there. You'd be so effing there. Like, can any of these movies compete with that? Do any of these movies have boobies? No. No. They used to show boobies all the time. That was a standard. If you did a horror movie, you absolutely had to show boobies. Even in the horror movie I worked on, they were all about the boobies. They told me specifically to write a boobie scene in it. I was like, okay. And I did. And they shot it. So, it was pretty good. It's not for very long. So, But now these days, you don't even know if you're getting boobies on a woman. You might be like, oh, nice boobies. Oh, it's a dude. What? Oh, come on. John Adams. In Seattle, there's broadcast television channels that show South Asian soap operas. I don't understand a word of them, but they're neat visually. Lots of samurai and period piece ones. Neat. I used to love public television when I could see it. I have a lot of friends who lived in New York City. I don't see them very much these days because I'm afraid to go to New York City again. But done in a second, the old bait and switch, the old bait and booby. But I would go to New York and sometimes I'd stay over. And one of the things I loved to do, and I would always say to my friend, oh, can we watch some public television on New York broadcast cable? And he'd be like, okay. Because he could see it anytime he wanted. And then we'd turn it on, and it was always the craziest ass stuff. Oh man, I wish maybe that's on the internet somewhere. Oh wow, that would be badass. So like, they had stuff on, and this is before the internet. So they would have stuff on public cable in New York City, like the Naked Talk Show, where these guys, they just did a show, and the hosts were naked. Everybody was naked. The guests were naked. Everybody was just naked. And they would just talk. Like, they weren't doing sex stuff at all. They were all, nobody should have been naked on that show, by the way. So it was the most insane thing you'd ever see. You'd just be like, there are naked people on TV. And they're not good looking at all. And they just keep talking like they're not naked. And then there'd be like, I don't know, the crazy punk bands and just the most insane stuff. And then my friend had a show on it. And I swear to you, he would do the most insane things on his comedy show. And so one of his famous episodes was this. And I swear to God he did this because he was a comedian and he was pretty meta, ahead of his time, I would say, in some of these results. The first thing he did was he shot an opening for his show. And I swear to you, it's a montage of music that lasts about, I think it's between 5 and 10 minutes. So imagine you watch a show, and it's this elaborate thing where he shot like in multiple locations, and he does all this, and the end of it is him playing a piano on a truck bed that's driving through the city. So then, like, his show was a half hour long. So one of his episodes, he's got the camera set up in the bathroom, and he says, listen, I forgot to do the show this week, and I have a date. So I just got to get a shower, and then I got to leave. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to do the show this week. So thanks for tuning in. Good night. And then he closes the curtain and gets into the shower, and he runs the shower for 25 minutes. So the entire episode is just the shower running. And then at the end, it just fades to black. And he never comes out of the shower. He never comes out of the shower. And there's no explanation of why he's done this. And I know you're saying, that's nuts. I would be so pissed off if I saw that episode. But that's the kind of crazy stuff that was on New York cable. Indie Phantom. Tom Green did some of the funniest public access television in Ottawa, Canada back in the day. Was his finest work. Yeah, I used to watch him too. My friend was not nearly as weird as Tom Green, though. He was more comedian than weird. John Adams. I'd really like to go on vacation in New York City again, just for the Met. There was a whole room of colonial spoons. Too much wuss to go back. Too much of a wuss to go back now with how the city is going. Yeah, don't go back now. It's really bad. It's really bad. I hear stuff, and it just sounds worse and worse every day. And then I was dating this girl, and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to New York to see a play." I'm like, "Well, have a good time. I'm not going." And I'm like, I'm not sure why you're going. No, it'll be great. And then she went and had a great time and didn't see anything bad. So good on her for staying inside the ropes, I guess. But I think going to New York, you're taking your life in your own hands at this point. But I have a relative who just moved there, and so far he says he said it was safer than when he was living before in St. Louis. So Go figure. That's how bad St. Louis is, I guess. Indie Phantom. Speaking of Tom Green, I watched the 90s weird thriller Doppelganger, which features prime Drew Barrymore boobies in the shower. Excuse me. Nice. I was really into Drew Barrymore up until this last episode of Woke. She has just gone. I don't know what her deal is. She used to be cool. Now I feel like she's not cool at all. She's totally cringe. But for years I thought, oh, I could get Drew Barrymore. I think I could. If I had that career in Hollywood, I imagine, I think I could have gotten Drew Barrymore. I think we would have been an item for a while. But it may just be because I have terrible taste in women a lot of times, and I go for red flags, especially when I was younger. Not so much anymore. I've worked on that. I think I'm improving. But back in the day, oh yeah, I would have been all about that red flag. John Adams. St. Louis has one of the most prominent chess clubs in North America. I'm also not visiting there anytime soon. Yeah, it doesn't sound good. New York doesn't sound good, though. But it might just be that New York gets better coverage because it's New York. Indie Phantom. Barrymore and her talk show is ultra cringe. Yeah, that's what's really turned me off of her. It's not even her looks. It's just why are you turning yourself into Oprah? I just don't get why, but okay. I guess there's a lot of money in it. But go figure. Go figure. Anyhow, what are we up to here? Ezra, dropping the 13 from 9, made $370,000. So this was that autistic movie. It dropped by 70%. So that has no legs. In the second week, all these movies have no legs. In a Violent Nature dropped 70%, so it's done, I think. Haiku, the Dumpster Battle, anime movie, dropped 78%. Goodbye. I saw the TV Glow. I don't know how this movie's still in theaters. Dropping to... actually, it's up. It's up 14 from 15. $261,000. I guess. Number 11... let's see, 13, 14, 15 is Sight. This is Angel Studios. It looks inspirational, but I can understand why people didn't go see it. After that is Babes, which I believe it was Bounding in the Comics, dubbed it like the worst movie you'll see. It's anti-comedy. It's really bad, according to them. It looks terrible. It just looks terrible. That's the idea of comedy now in Hollywood. A feminist diatribe with no jokes in it. And that's what it sounds like it is. And that from the trailer and from everything I read about it, just sounds, ugh. I mean, Broad City, the woman from Broad City's in it, Alana Glazer. Broad City wasn't that bad. It had Hannibal Buress in it, who's funny. It had a couple of good bits about young New Yorkers living in the city and doing stupid stuff. But, I mean, she is like super woke feminist, I think. And whatever comedy chops she had, she just let them all go, I guess. And now she's just, I don't know, pushing her wacky feminist agenda, I guess. But I assume the people backing her are super excited for that. But who's seeing this movie? Who's seeing this movie? $235,000? It made $3.2 million. This definitely ain't going overseas. I don't know what the budget is, but I would guess it's more than $3.2 million. You know, it's not super expensive to shoot a comedy like this, but $3.2 million? That's barely enough to just shoot the damn thing and edit it, I think. You know, back in the day, a movie like this probably would have been written by comedians and would have been halfway funny and wouldn't be so feminist. Probably would have done, I don't know, 10, 20 million. But nowadays, who wants a lecture? Who wants to go to a movie for a lecture? You want to see a comedy. You want to forget your troubles. You don't want to be reminded what a sexist pig you are. You know, what man would go see a movie like Babes? if you've gone to see Babes, even to bang a girl, just turn in your man card. No, no, that's too much. Tarot, horror movie, Money in the Bank, 6 weeks, $221,000. Civil War, somehow still in theaters, made money. Some inexplicable reason, $78,000. Robot Dreams, hard to rate this one. It's made a little more money because it's in more theaters, but not many more. It's made $53,000. Unsung Hero already made its money from Lionsgate. It's an inspirational, semi-religious movie. Evil Does Not Exist. Didn't even crack $1 million. Made $41,000 this week. Tuesday. This is a new Julia Louis-Dreyfus film. Now, it only made $25,000, but it's only in 2 theaters. But they're touting this as, like, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is trying to make the changeover to a serious actress. And I think director, I don't think she directs this one, but I think she directed that other movie. So this is like the 3rd or 4th movie with her. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus, although TDS and super woke, not untalented. Very funny. Should be doing comedies, but I think she's trying to make that leap that a lot of comedians do late in their career. Like, oh, I'm going to be super serious now, like Woody Allen. I don't think it's working for her. I don't think her movies are working. Indie Phantom. Is Babes the sequel to Women Talking? Might as well be, because I ain't going to see it. John Adams. From the title Babes, seems like it's something I'd be interested in. Sounds like fake advertising now, though. Yeah. A movie like Babes in the 80s would have been like nothing but bikini girls all day long. Oh, it would have been great. Would have been bikini girls, and they have a wet t-shirt contest, and they're drinking beers, and they're partying. That would have been Babes in 1983. Babes in 2024 is like some sort of hellscape, and a feminist hellscape where you get lectured. A movie that no man should ever watch, or will watch, unless he's dragged there by his henpecked girlfriend or wife, I guess. Here's an interesting movie. It's only in 1 theater. It's called I Used to Be Funny. What the hell is this? I gotta look this one up. $15,000, but it's only in 1 theater. Let's see what the plot of this is. I Used to Be Funny. Sam, a stand-up comedian struggling with PTSD, weighs whether or not to join the search for a missing teenage girl she used to nanny. That does not sound funny at all. That sounds awful. Nikki D is here. Hi, Nikki. Welcome. Babe, the movie with the pig, was excellent. Yeah, you think a sequel in, say, the 2000s, Babes, it would have been Babe and all his friends, other little piggies. Or that Babe marries another piggy and they have kids. And it's Babes. Oh, there's a whole bunch of Babes running around. It would have been a nice kids movie. John Adams. Well, to be fair then, they did say they used to be funny. That's true. That's true. But it sounds very sad. Indie Phantom. Hard Bodies was a great movie. One of the best opening title sequence. Babe on the Beach. Hard Bodies. I vaguely remember that title. 1984. Oh, it's got a great... yeah, I remember this movie. 3 middle-aged guys rent a beach house to hopefully score with some young single women. Not having what it takes, the men hire a sexy young surfer, Scotty, to teach them some game and help them meet girls. This is a movie in the 80s. They made these movies like every day in the 80s. Every friggin' other day a movie like this would drop. Nikki D, Lamau, 1984. Yeah. Man, that's the way it was. And I used to like get annoyed by, there were so many of these movies in the 80s, I would get annoyed by them. I'm like, come on, this movie's gonna suck. Oh, there'll be hot chicks in it. Yeah, but it'll suck. All right, I'll go. Halfway tempted to play the trailer, but the music might come on. John Adams. It also has a sequel from 1986. No. Does it? Hard Bodies 2? Yes, it does. The bodies are harder. Okay. There's a hot chick in front of like a statue. A film crew is traveling from America to Greece to produce a movie. It sounds like it has nothing to do with the previous movie. Before their work is done, they will have to face many unusual situations along with numerous opportunities for the actresses to take their clothes off. Hard Bodies 2. The hardest of bodies are back. Oh, that makes me laugh. Indie Phantom sequel is good too. And it's billed as a comedy. But it was mostly boobies, let's be honest. Mostly boobies. Mostly people like watching it going, oh, there's going to be boobies next. Oh, that's pretty funny. Oh, the boobies. 80s. I miss the 80s. I know. It's like we can't get a good, spreading out of the boobies in movies. Like there were too many in the 80s. I can't believe I just said that, but it was true. Like every movie was just like an entire movie built around some chick's rack and would make zero sense. But like, why not spread those movies out over time instead of just like, we're gonna beat this horse to death and then move on to the next thing? It's like now we have nothing but woke movies. It sucks. Indie Phantom. The trailer's great. Columbia Pictures making fun of the whole thing. Oh wow. Sounds almost like what's that series of soft porn movies? Oh gosh, what was it called? Like The Girls Next Door or something? Real Girls, or I don't know. They run around. Girls would be flashing, and they'd all be having sex with each other. And then the guy who invented it was doing infomercials and selling it, but then eventually got arrested on some Me Too stuff. Store Bang. The love scene in Top Gun is unwatchable. The first one or the second one? 'Cause I don't think is there a love scene in the second one? I don't think there is. God, I don't remember the love scene in Top Gun. Is Tom Cruise in it? I assume he is. What, Kelly McGinnis? Girls Gone Wild. Thank you, John Adams. That's it. Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. Girls Gone Wild. Like it's almost like a prototype. Except, they wouldn't be totally naked. They'd be topless. Like the line was always, you could go topless. Store Bang, 1986. You could go topless and get your R rating, and then maybe you could show a little bit of bush, just a little. You couldn't go too crazy with bush. You definitely couldn't go past that. Like the girls, you couldn't really see anything other than bush, and but you couldn't go too crazy with that, or else you would dip into X rating. Depending on the era and depending on who was in charge of that at that time. But back in the day, it was boobies galore, and maybe you'd see some bush. Indie Phantom. Glad they made so many TNA flicks back then to keep us going in the age of the drought. Yes, they did. For the hard times, so to speak. John Adams. I think the last of that genre movie was either Beer Fest or Eurotrip, 2005-ish. I remember Eurotrip, yep, and I remember Beer Fest. Was there anything after that? Probably not. I mean, yeah. Indie Phantom. Spring Breakers is a cool movie. Just saying. Yeah, I think that's a little more intense though. It's like a serious version of this almost, because they rob banks and stuff, don't they? All right, let's finish up the list. All right, so I don't know. I used to be funny. Bad title. Bad title, I would say. Flip Side. I don't know what that is. Second week. Wildcat. Another art house movie on its way out. And Indigo Girls, It's Only Life After All. Okay, so their concert movie. Back for its 9th week in a row. It made $2,880. What? Did that even cover the cost of the 3 theaters it's in? Let me see what this Flip Side movie is. Oh, I think I... Did I see the trailer for this? I guess I didn't. Something to do with a record store. I don't know. Doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Phantom. Indie Phantom. Yeah, John sounds about right. Even saw Eurotrip on a couch with a hotter date. Eva. Nice. Nice. All right. That's the box office. Oh, what was the total? 102 million. So Bad Boys made up more than half of that. So Bad Boys single-handedly saved this week from an embarrassingly under $100 million box office. John Adams at Indie Fandom. Gotta remember the safe word. Forgetting coach. Indie Phantom 2K. They covered the catering budget. Yeah. So wow. Half the box office is Bad Boys. The rest are all the other movies. And really, if you count everything up until Lord of the Rings and all the movies that made at least $1 million, I mean, you're talking, let's see, 3.7, 6.1, 8.8, 13, 18, 25, 35, and 8 is 43. That's 99. So about 9. So basically, almost 100 million are the top 10 movies, and the rest made up about 2 million. Indie Phantom, LOL. That's no laughing matter, Indie Phantom. These movies aren't making money. They are not making jack. Yeah, we really need to do something about that, Hollywood. Not that you seem to care. Let me look at last week's chart, because last week was very low. 65. Yeah, they added a few movies onto this list, I think, but not many. And really, I think that's only a difference of 3 million. I think last week was 62 million when I looked at it. So, and there's some stuff on here that Summer Camp, $1 million. I don't think that wasn't on the list for today. So, oh, and that's that Diane Keaton movie. Ugh, it looks awful. That looks awful. But yeah, box office not in great shape. Not in great shape at all. For June, I mean, we used to get these kind of numbers for January. You know, we used to get hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions. Now we're squeaking by at 100 million. Yeah. Excuse me. Indie Phantom Summer Camp with no boobies. You don't want to see the boobies in that. Trust me, it's Diane Keaton, Kathy Bates. Everybody in it's old. You don't want to see their boobies. No. No. If you want movie boobies, we have to see quality boobies. Quality. Not old boobies, quality boobies. Oh, but they'll try to pitch that in some stupid movie, I'm sure, in a not too distant future. Oh, she's old, but she's going to be naked in the love scene because she's beautiful. I think maybe it's time to think about not hiring quite so many women in the movie industry, especially the woke ones. The woke ones definitely need to go. Maybe just give the movie industry back to men to fix it for a while. Because men will put boobies in the movie. Good boobies. A lot of good boobies. Indie Phantom. Damn, sounds terrible. It looks terrible. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like a weird reunion movie for summer camp, and it's like a rom-com with Diane Keaton falling in love. I forget with who. Some name actor I forget. It's just those kinds of movies too, like the hotel movies. These used to be like second, third tier movies that someone like Diane Keaton, Kathy Bates, and a bunch of other actors whose names I forget wouldn't be caught dead in, even when their careers sort of started to slide, because those movies. But now these actors, they'll appear in just about anything. They'll appear in just about anything because the movie industry, to me, is that dead that they're starved for work. And you have to understand, if I was your agent out in LA, and you're a name actor, my goal is to get you to work constantly. Because first off, I make money when you make money. And second, you want to work. If you're an actor, you want to work. If you're a working actor, you want to work all the time. And you get in on it. And this is what actors will do. For about a year, 2 years, 3 years, they will say to their agent, get me work. I'm ready. Sign me up. I got back into shape. I'm eating right. I'm ready to go. And then the agent starts beating the bushes. And then he just starts lining one thing after another up. Boom, 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 boom. So literally, you're getting scripts, you're memorizing them, you go to the set, you're there for 2 to 3 months. Probably, if you're the name, you're only there for a month because they shoot all your scenes first. And then boom, you're on a plane, you're back home for a week. Then in a week later, you're on another set for another 2 months. And you do that for like 2 years until you are just stacking the cash. You're stacking the cash. And you get $500,000 here, $1 million there, 300,000 there, and you're just going from thing to thing to thing. I'll tell you, Eric Roberts' agent never stops working. That guy, Eric Roberts, is in everything B-movie related. I've never seen that guy not in a movie year after year. He's in at least half a dozen movies a year, it seems. Guy constantly works. And so, when you're an actor, that's what you do. And you don't question the quality of the script per se. You might have your agent say certain things like, well, he doesn't want to do naked scenes, or he doesn't want to do scenes in which he dies, or which he's a bad guy, or which he's cruel to women. Like, there will be a few stipulations. But you can't say stuff like, well, he doesn't want to do bad movies, because you don't have time to vet every movie that comes across your desk. They're just going to offer you the money. And you might get to see the script and you might not. Or you might just say, F it, I want to work. Because you don't want to get the reputation for being hard to work with. And sometimes you get a script and maybe you don't like it, but it turns out to be a hit movie. Or a good movie, even. Not all actors are good at judging a screenplay. So some of them just throw caution in the wind, and they'll just be in anything. I mean, Michael Caine was in everything for a while. I mean, he's retired now, but back in the day, oh my God, Michael Caine, he basically told his agent, I'll take anything. I'll do anything. And he would. But a lot of actors of his era wouldn't do that. They would only take certain movies at like this level. If it's not up here, I'm not going to take a B movie. I don't want to be down here. I don't want to be down here. I want to be up here in the A list. I want to work twice a year and be done and make a ton of money. So, but now that money is so spread out or gone, they're fighting over roles that I think in previous years they would be like, huh, that's beneath me. No, thank you. I'm not going to be in a movie called Sharknado. So you could take your offer, sir, and forget it. John Adams, still waiting on that Dragon Riders of Pern movie from the female author Anne McCaffrey. That would be a good movie. They could do that now. And it's a female author, so you got one woke base covered. You don't have to screw it up, Hollywood. Indie Phantom. Diane Keaton had like one of the lowest grossing theatrical movies ever, like 2 years. It was like a body switch thing where she had a hot chick that woke up as old ass Keaton. Yes, I remember that movie. Indie Phantom. Eric Roberts will be on your film for 2K if he can film his scenes from his home and send the file to you. No lie. I believe it. I 100% believe that. Indie Phantom. Yeah, Michael Caine missed getting Oscar because he was filming Jaws the Revenge. I saw Jaws the Revenge. Is that the one that's in 3D? I'm almost sure that's 3D. It's Jaws 3D, The Revenge. Because that has a scene in which a leg, it's in 3D, so the leg comes down in front of your face. You're wearing a 3D glasses, and then as it sinks, you realize there's no body connected to it. It's just a severed leg. And then you go, ew, and it's like right in your face. John Adams, the Pern series sold the rights to a movie in the mid-90s. Warner Brothers owns the rights now. The author died a decade ago. Well, Warner Brothers would be smart to make that instead of another effing Lord of the Rings movie. Why don't you make that, Andy Serkis? You could direct it. You could be in it. I don't care. At least it would be different. I don't even know what it's about. I just remember the title. Back in the day, it was pretty popular. All right, let's see what's happening in the trades. Over at Variety. Don't know who those two are. Dick Van Dyke makes history as the oldest daytime Emmy winner ever at 98. I didn't even know he was on TV. But good for him. The guy's still alive. And he still looks like, yeah, he looks pretty old, but he can walk. You know, I've done a lot of events at old folks' homes. There's a lot of people that they're not even close to 98. They can't walk. And they can barely talk. They're messed up. But Dick Van Dyke, damn, he is just out there doing his stuff. God bless him. Indie Phantom, not the 3D Jaws. This was the fourth with wife of Schreider's character in the pathetic lead. As the pathetic lead. Interesting. Indie Phantom, Dick Van Dyke can still dance even. Yeah, it's crazy. Guy's almost 100. That's pretty awesome. Maybe he'll be the first guy in Hollywood to make it to like 100. Imagine he's around for another 20 years. That'd be crazy, right? There's Bad Boys Rides to #1. People are pretty happy. Nike drops new Air Jordan 6 retro sneakers. Here's where to get a pair online. I don't care. Why is that in Variety? Will AI become a friend or foe to animators? Eventually a friend. In the beginning it'll be a foe. The studios will fire everybody and then hire them back in weird ways. British TV doctor Michael Mosley found dead on Greek island. I don't know who that is, but that sounds pretty outrageous. And of course in Variety, we need to know that France's far-right party gains historic ground in European vote. What the hell are you even covering this for, Variety? John Adams, I don't know if it's still the case, but I remember learning in college biology that the theoretical limit for human beings is 118 years. I don't know, man. So, for human lungs is 118. Oh, really? Well, they are making plans to use a 3D printer of sorts, and they may be able to clone you and your body parts, and you're going to live probably past that. So you can imagine a system in which they just say, okay, looks like you need new lungs. Let's just push the buttons here. All right, we got you some new lungs. We took some blood samples, and now we're just going to pop them in your chest there. and then you're like, oh, I could breathe. I feel great. That's going to really change things up. You're going to be able to do that with your heart or whatever. You eventually do it with your whole body. They're working on a head replacement thing. There's a... Now, it's only in the proposed stages, I guess. But the idea would be they would take off your head and put your old head on a young body and, like, completely replace you. Isn't that crazy? We'll see. It'd be interesting. I wonder if they'll just, again, they probably eventually just print you an entire new body. See, that's the goal, because once they get to that point, there'll be no rejection because it's your body. The problem with putting your head on a younger body is your head may reject the body and then you're dead. And you have to take all these drugs to make sure that doesn't happen. But if you can clone body parts, they'll just pop them right in. Pop them right in. Jojo Siwa, I don't know who this woman is, but she pops up. I guess she's a singer. Drinks from a vodka bottle at LA Pride and drags online troll who called her a man. If I effed more girls than him. Okay. Not sure what... Who cares? Is Jojo Siwa a man or a woman? I don't even know. Okay. Switching over to Fandom Pulse, which is now on Substack, by the way, if you're missing out on that. Indie Phantom, the head switching thing could get us into weirder gender issues. Yeah. Yes, it could. But maybe not. Maybe people could switch. Look, when the technology actually works and they can clone you, like your whole body, they'll be able to, I assume, mess with your chromosomes and then essentially build you a body of the opposite sex, and then just you wouldn't reject it, I guess. Theoretically, I guess that could work. But I don't know, it sounds a bit much. But there have been science fiction stories about that. One was, I think John Varley wrote a story, and it was, the idea was your I think it was called like something like robbery at the brain bank, because the idea was you go to the brain bank every day, and you update your deposit, your brain, and the machine just does it. And then that way, if you're ever killed, you just wake up in the bank and they just bring you back to life. But you only have the memories of going to the bank up until that moment. You miss your other memories. So the premise of the story is a guy wakes up at the bank and he's like, oh my God, why am I here? Did someone kill me? And they're like, yeah, someone killed you, and you have to figure out who. So in the process of figuring out who, he eventually meets other versions of himself that are not supposed to exist, including one that's a female version of him. And then they fall in love and they stay together. It's weird. But they're the perfect couple because they are the same person. It's sort of the vibe. John Adams, I assume that one of the first areas of that science will be recreating the body of a lady from Total Recall. Yes, we'll need a 3-boobed woman very, very soon. John Adams, Neuromancer had that as well. As part of a heist, they steal the virtual version of some sort of super hacker. Neat. All right. So this was a big story this week. Kotaku claims the Call of Duty trans bullets is a bug in the latest crazy left-wing... Oh, got to click on it. Left-wing conspiracy. So what this was, Call of Duty apparently thought it was a good idea, or someone related to the game thought it would be a good idea to put the trans flag colors on bullets in Call of Duty, which just seems wrong on a couple of different levels. And you can imagine if someone did this as some kind of sick joke against trans people, it would have been national news and people would have been calling for somebody to be fired. But because I think some left-winger did it, it's like they're defending it, kind of. Either way, it just sounds stupid to do, considering the propensity for, I'll just say, certain groups of individuals for self-deletion. It just seems in poor taste. And it seems like something they should have said no to. They should have said, no, don't do that. But they did it. So I'm not sure what the hell the deal with that is. And then all this week was Acolyte stuff, which I'm so exhausted from talking about the Acolyte. So exhausted. And I don't think we quite got the fallout of the third episode yet, but I think some people have seen it, and now it's starting to leak out that it indeed kills Star Wars. Like, it's the final nail in the coffin, ideologically, I guess you could say, of the concepts of Star Wars. Like, it's the equivalent of that episode of Doctor Who that killed Doctor Who. So, congratulations, Kathleen Kennedy, I guess, for doing that. I guess that's what you wanted to do. I don't understand why you would do that. You have a concept that people seem to love, and you do everything you can to make people dislike it. Drive all its male fan base away for a tiny, tiny slice of female fandom that, for my money, isn't really interested in Star Wars. They're just not interested in Star Wars. It's never been a female thing. Ever. And making it girly isn't even going to help that. John Adams. Call of Duty was infiltrated years ago. They have dozens of various pride flags you can put on your calling card. The customizable thing your opponent sees when you win. Yeah, I don't know why you would need that. Who would? Okay. So you're telling me, I don't know, Call of Duty is just full of, I guess, gay guys playing Call of Duty, I guess? Or just, it's probably just full of trolls using the flag to piss people off, I guess. Whatever. I bet they wouldn't let the Confederate flag in that mix. I bet they wouldn't let that flag in. Yeah, it's just stupid. It's just stupid. Grow up. Grow up. But, so anyhow, Rolling Stone yanked the rogue journalist's scathing review of the Acolyte. Part of it was that he had broke the embargo, and I think, at least that's what some people were saying, but does it really matter when the review's this bad? I mean, you're talking Rolling Stone here. They're not exactly anti-establishment anymore. So, it just looks like one big giant S show. But I am not seeing it. I'm not going to waste my time on Star Wars anymore. No, thank you. No, thank you. Indie Phantom, how the hell did the video game industry go so hard woke? I think they were doing it first. Yeah, they kind of were. It kind of leaked out in video games and comic books first. It was always sort of in comics, but it was sort of a low boil. With video games, there was Gamergate. John Adams, Silicon Valley, and HR departments is the answer. Yeah, that's part of it too. These companies are consulting extremely woke organizations as consultants, DEI consultants now, as part of some program to, initially it was like, well, if we do this, then we won't be called nasty names online, and then people will like our product, I guess was the initial thinking behind it. But really what it was about was pressing this ideological conformity onto men, mostly, by women, mostly. Because most of these organizations are all made up of woke women who are just, I don't know, they have degrees in gender studies, I guess, and a bunch of nonsense credentials that probably make zero sense to anybody else but them. And then the video game companies just have money to burn, and they're desperate for ESG points, I guess. And so they're just pouring money into these places, and they're ruining all the games. Before, it was a bunch of players and activists outside the games, and then they made their way into the companies and have ruined it from the inside. So you only need one employee, because the way it works typically is that the woke employee, their goal is then to immediately hire more. Like, once you get in, all woke people know how to do is complain. Okay, well, we think we want to hire you. Oh, okay, well, I'd love to be your HR person. Then you get in there, and then the HR person does her first evaluation of the company or whatever. Well, how did we do? Oh, well, the problem is you don't have enough women here, and you definitely don't have enough people of marginalized groups. I'm not seeing many of those people. Oh, well, certainly we want to hire those people. Well, and then that's the way it starts. And then who's hiring these people? Well, the HR people are doing all the hiring, so they're going to aim for more woke people. They're going to do the interviews, and they're going to ask people, well, are you a marginalized group or whatever? Until finally they get some more woke people. And now you've got a contingent of woke people. And then they get in there, and you think they're going to be satisfied, but they're not. Now they're going to complain more, and now there's more employees to complain. And they just keep complaining and keep taking over spots. And then the next thing you know, you're firing people just to appease these people, and it still doesn't appease them. And it's not until they take over, and that's essentially what the DEI sort of system does. You have to filter everything through them. If they don't approve it, oh, this is problematic, out it goes. So now you have these woke video games full of, there was a scene in that Spider-Man game where you play one of the female characters and you go on a tagging spree and, I don't know, talk about the patriarchy or some nonsense like that. They were redesigning the women characters so they wouldn't be sexy anymore. And that's, again, it's all these woke women who have infiltrated an industry they never even wanted to be involved with. These women, 90% of them, they don't actually want to be involved in this. They actually just want to have relationships. And this is their bizarre, contorted, convoluted way to make themselves feel good about themselves, to make themselves feel like they're good people, and present themselves and their virtues to you so they can have, more relationships. But it's, it doesn't work because, of course, actual men will be like, well, that doesn't sound very good, what you do. Why would you only hire a person because they're black? That just seems stupid. And they're not going to date. They're going to date, simps. Guys who say, oh, that sounds, oh, I'm woke too. Because they just are thirsty enough to lie to get sex. So, yeah, it's a vicious cycle. And these women have been totally sucked into it. And it's mostly women. There's some men too. Some men are they're either trying to protect their job, or a few of them may actually believe it. I have serious doubts that a lot of people believe it. I think some people they ideologically commit because they say, oh, this is the way things are going. Okay, I'll do that. And that 90% of the time, that sort of attitude helps you in your career when you don't care about your job, right? So you just say and do things you think, oh, well, this will help me keep my job. Oh, this will help me get a promotion. But in previous years, most of that stuff was just normal stuff. Like, well, you got to be a company man. Okay, I'll be a company man. I'll work late. Well, you got to be a company man. Come on this retreat. Okay, I'll come to a training retreat or whatever. Whatever the boss wanted. Now it's a different thing. Now it's like the commies standing over your shoulder saying, you believe in communism, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I totally believe in it, comrade. Oh yeah, comrade, yeah, I believe it. So you love trans people, right? Oh, I love them a lot. I wish I had more of them in my life all the time. I think we should put trans flags on everything, constantly, nonstop. Why don't we have a whole game dedicated to trans people? If that's how you're going to get a promotion, you're just going to do it. And once you're sort of down that path, how do you back off of it? Now you've said and done all these things you don't mean to people who you know are going to fire you the second you recant. The second you recant. And you see other people say, no, I don't want to do that. But what happens to them? Oh, they get fired. They get moved right out. They find an excuse, or they just wait till the next evaluation. Well, John, the other day, someone on the break room overheard you say something that sounded a little transphobic. And whether it's true or not doesn't matter. Does it matter? Your evaluation is totally arbitrary. I mean, I know people in the corporate world, they just, they fight over, it's a whole political intrigue. Half of those evaluations don't even mean anything, right? Especially when you have a system by which the evaluations then do things like determine who gets raises. So you might have a situation in which I can, if you're being rated from 1 to 5, I can't hand out all 5s because maybe corporate said, oh, you're handing out 5s to everybody. No, you can't hand out all 5s. We're only going to give you 3 5s a quarter. The rest of the time, you got to hand out other numbers. So then you get into a fight with your own people because, like, well, I had to give this person a 5 because I owe him a favor, and I had to give this person a 5, well, because they're the new hire, and I've been told by my boss to give her a 5, and it becomes a thing within itself. Oh, someone has entered the chat. John Adams, they're like a virus invading a cell. Invade, duplicate, pop the original cell, spread to more cells. Yes. Joe Higashi, legit leg kicks. Oh, I love them, comrade. Ha 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 ha. Your hyperbole is funny, but do you have a point, though? I don't think it is as bad as you think. Because if y'all would have hired them the last 40 years, they wouldn't be doing this and begging Disney to buy everything. When they went global, it's over because they own all the brands now, so yeah. Look, you hire people based on merit, period. If you hire based on, well, we have to have a person of a certain skin color or sexuality, there are always going to be questions about whether the person is competent. Now, they might be competent, and the truth is, if you're in corporate management before everybody went woke, if you were competent and you were one of these marginalized groups, they would fight over you if you were competent. So if you had a game designer and that person was good and they just happened to be gay or black or trans or whatever, literally companies would fight over you because A, they wanted that diversity anyway, even before everybody went woke. They wanted diversity in their company because it just makes them look good. It's good PR. And 2, there's not enough of them, and that's the problem. The reason they're marginalized groups because the groups are small. Just because you're in one of those marginalized groups doesn't mean you're actually competent. There are competent, just like in any other group. There are competent people, there are incompetent people, and there are people who are just kind of average Joes. You want to hire the best people all the time. It's very hard to find the marginalized people in that realm because guess what? It's not that, oh, there's a big global conspiracy to not hire them. It's because they're so rare and there's so few. Just like there's just so few good writers or good actors or good movies and good TV shows and good video games. Even when you're hiring the best, there's only so many good people to go around. And that's why this idea like, whoa, you didn't hire these people for 40 years. It's not like 40 years ago in the 80s, I would wake up in the morning and I would look outside my window and people with white hoods were marching down the street. It was the 80s, man. Women worked. Plenty of minorities worked. Plenty of marginalized people worked. Were there people who were prejudiced? Yeah. There were also people who just hated you for no reason because that's corporate politics. And sometimes you make an enemy and sometimes they just hate you. Now, whether that's individual or racial or something to do with your sex, you have to parse that out on an individual basis. And no one likes that crap. Because if you're only hiring on merit and you go after a employee who has merit and you're only going after him because of his race or his sexuality as the corporate head, I don't want that. Because I want the best people in the job. And if the best person just happens to be gay and I hired him, and now that's a virtue signal and good PR for my company, I definitely don't want you going after him. And that was true 30, 40 years ago. John Adams. Oh, it's worse than he's describing. I've lost multiple jobs in the industry over it. Joe Higashi. At John Adams. Fair enough. Haha. Indie Phantom. Time for that Soul Man remake. It's more relevant than ever. Joe Higashi. To be fair, if the white Amerimuts can be mediocre, then the minority or gay or trans can be mediocre. I wish more people weren't, but it's just legislation to allow them to be slackers too? You're right about the good writers thing. There are a few people that can craft an interesting movie from scratch, and their race or background has nothing to do with it. Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough. Part of the problem, which is separate from all this woke crap, is people in Hollywood just don't read. So if you don't read, you don't really know what a good story is. You can't have guys who aren't well read picking your screenwriters. It's just not going to work. You need guys who know good movies. They read good movies. They read good books. They read good comics or whatever. And they don't have to read everything, but that's part of the problem in Hollywood. There always was piles and piles and piles of screenplay. Piles of them. You cannot imagine. One agent described it to me like this. At the time, I was trying to get in with the TV show, and I'm dating myself here, Moonlighting. And I was trying to get an agent because the Moonlighting producers expressed interest in my work. Long story short. Anyhow, I called an agent, and I said, I have a promise from the producers. If I have an agent, they will look at the script. Why can't you just send my script over? And the agent sighed, and he says, listen, kid, I am one agent in LA. And in my office right now, and I'm not kidding, I have about, and Moonlighting was a hot show at the time, I have about 100 spec scripts for Moonlighting. 100. 100. He goes, I am one agent in LA. There are at least 3,000 agents in LA alone, and every one of them has 100 copies, 100 different screenplays for Moonlighting because it was a hot show at the time. That's the odds you're against just in LA, 300,000 to 1. And that doesn't count the guys in New York and the guys all over the country who also have agencies and also have spec scripts. And then when you're talking about movie screenplays, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of screenplays that are never read, that just sit in a pile, and nobody can read them all. And that's why agents and producers and studios hire readers, and you can actually go online and possibly get a job doing it, to read scripts and write evaluations of them. Because the producers don't want to waste their time with a script that's obviously bad. Now, some of that's good, because some people write terrible, terrible screenplays that are literally, they make no sense. And they should just be thrown away. But some people can't get through that system because it's just a volume thing. It's just an insane amount of screenplays that just can't be read. And add that to now we have the situation in which woke producers then jump certain people in front of the line because of their skin color or their sexuality or whatever. That totally skews all the numbers. Now you're jumping people ahead of the line. You have no idea if these people are qualified. They didn't make it through the system. If you get a screenplay through the old system, you can at least say, oh my God, this must be some screenplay. Everybody's talking about it. It got through dozens of guys reading it, and they gave it glowing evaluations. Oh, you got to make this movie. It's fantastic. Here's why. It's well written. You get the right actors. This will be, millions. But if you haven't gone through that system and you're taking DEI hires, then you have to lower the bar because there's not enough of them that are going to be that fabulous. Again, there might be one or two. There might be one or two in 1,000, 10,000. Again, the odds against me were 300,000 to 1 just in LA to get on Moonlighting. To just get my script read. Wasn't even that they were going to buy it. Just to read the damn thing. And I couldn't get past the door. I couldn't get them to send it. And I had a promise from the producers to read it. He said, you need an agent. Get an agent, we'll read the script. None of the agents would send the script over. The end. John Hagashi, a red flag is people that refuse to watch old films or classics or anything old. They're idiots. Most innovations are from old films brought back to new audience. Well, the reason you should watch the old stuff, the classic stuff, is because it's very good. And what you want in your brain rattling around is all the good stuff. Because what you want to do is never reinvent the wheel. Like, you don't want to have to look at your project and say, oh, this is really good, but isn't this the same sort of plot as The Third Man or Touch of Evil or, Citizen Kane? If you haven't seen Citizen Kane, you could literally end up rewriting Citizen Kane. And that's why you have to see it, so you don't repeat an obvious classic. But having all those classics in your brain, you keep coming to realize the big moves that are required for a great screenplay or a great work. So you want to read Shakespeare and you want to read all the classics to see why these are classics and to try to understand that. And once you understand some of it, at least, you're never going to understand it all, but once you understand some of it, then you're raising the bar in your own brain to, well, I have to do better. And I can't just give you a scene in which two people are talking in a store about nothing. I have to put in subtext. I have to put in things about their relationship, and they may be talking to each other on one level, but on another level, they're having an ideological battle about who is up on who, for instance. So that's what you need. Like, for me, I do that with comedy. I wrote comedy since I've been in high school. So now when I write comedy, I take a very long view, because when you have a very long setup, like I have these very long setups in the Pineys that I'm slowly sprinkling in over the course of many books, and I want them all to pay off in the final book, which I don't know when I'm writing that, but I have ideas for it. I know what the plot's going to be, but I don't know when that's happening. So I'm sprinkling that in over the course of many books, because when I write the final book, it's going to have nothing but payoffs. It's just going to be payoff after payoff after payoff after payoff. And anyone who would read it would go, oh my God, I remember that. Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, he set that up since book 1. Oh my God, he set that up since book 5 or 7 or whatever. And so the longer you do this, the more skilled you get. But if you just take somebody, and this is another thing Hollywood does, oh, I want a young, new director. So they pick some guy out who made a halfway decent short film, and they say, here's $1 million, make a feature. And maybe he's not ready. You have to develop talent to a certain extent. So you don't want to necessarily give a guy, I mean, they've done that before. They've given a $200 million movie to somebody who wasn't ready. The woman who directed The Eternals was not ready to direct The Eternals, in my view. She just wasn't ready. Maybe she could have done it, but first off, I think she was the wrong director for the project, number one. But number two, like, they just wanted She just checked the right boxes at that time, and Hollywood's like, "Oh, we're gonna make $1 million. We're gonna make millions of dollars. We're gonna make $1 billion." You needed somebody who was capable of running a big production like that. Alex Ogle. Some of the engineers I have worked with are women because they are careful and thoughtful, but they just don't last. I can guarantee they will move on or start a family. Yeah, see, that's always an option for women. It's always an option for women to say, F this, I don't like working. I think I just want to stay home and take care of the kids. Now, on the one hand, okay, that's fine for women to do if that's what they want to do. But on the other hand, it's very unfair to the workplace that hired someone that they expected to stay. So, but on the other hand, women won't want to, put that out there because they may not get hired in the first place. What's going to end up happening is companies are going to just stop hiring women. That's just going to happen because they are sick of women taking advantage of maternity leave and all kinds of leave, right? So there are women who, and I've heard this especially in the teaching industry, there are women who they literally got a job, they got married, they put in just enough time so they could get tenure, get their maternity leave, and then the moment they did, they got pregnant. The moment they qualified for maternity leave, pregnant. And they couldn't be fired, and the school meanwhile had to get a completely different teacher for an entire, however long it is. It's pretty long. I think it's 9 months or a year or whatever, or even longer. I don't know what it is. It's a long time. And look, you could argue, well, women need that. It's kind of not fair to everybody else if they plan for that. It's different if, like, a woman's working for you and she genuinely didn't expect to be pregnant, and she gets pregnant and she says, well, I'm going to keep this baby. This wasn't what I planned, whatever. I'm talking about women who go, oh, okay, I'll work X amount of years. The moment I, qualify for maternity leave, I'll get pregnant, and then I'll just scoot, and you have to pay me for however long it is. I forget what it is. It's a long time. But women can always bail. They can always bail. So in Wokistan, a novel, I have a scene, and I wrote that scene. Me and Christian wrote it together, but I wrote this scene because there's just some woman who bails. She bails on her career and her entire life. And the scene is something like, well, you're just going to leave? And she's like, yeah, there's some guy down in Florida. I just want to go down there and I'll be with him and I'll teach yoga and do whatever. He's got money. Women can do that. If you're a beautiful woman, you could just check out and let some guy take care of you. And I gotta say, it looks appealing. If some beautiful woman came to me, or maybe not that beautiful, but beautiful enough, and said, oh, just come with me. I'll just pay your bills. You can just write your books. You can do whatever you want. All you gotta do is be around, be home with me. We'll be a couple. It'll be great. You'll live in a great house. I'd be like, sure. Where do I sign up? And if I was working a job, I'd be like, sayonara, see ya. Oh, why are you quitting? I don't need this job. So I can't blame them. But there has to be a balance. Has to be a little like, okay. All right. So you have to put in so many years if you're pregnant or whatever. And then, you either got to come back or you're just done. But there's the rules just favor the women now. Because it's like when they wrote the rules, the idea was like, oh, it's so unfair to women. We need to give women everything. But that was in a different time when women were mostly going to quit their jobs and have babies. Now they're just gaming the system. Some of them, not all of them. Joe Higashi. Nah, the old system wasn't good. The best films or ideas are from indie products, TMT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the system was never making great films. I'm not sure what system you're talking about, but I wouldn't. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was okay, but I wouldn't put that in the category of great films. It was a great comic. I don't know, for every 10 versus 100 they give a DIY person a shot. What's the big deal? Less than 10%. That's just how it is. Again, if they're not qualified, you're putting everybody else in a situation in which, somebody who has a job can't handle it. They may stress out about it. And there are people I know in corporate, they have DEI hires, they can't handle their jobs, they have to work around them, and then they feel more marginalized. And then they feel worse. And they didn't have to feel that way if they were to train properly and go up the ranks like everybody else. You cannot do this based on anything other than merit. If you do it based on anything other than merit, you're dumb. You're just stupid. Okay? You should do it based on merit. Period. And anything else, you should try to keep to the side. Now, there's a few other things like personality or whatever, how well they work with people, but that's part of the merit system. Part of working a job tends to be, well, you got to be able to work with people. So, there's no grand conspiracy to keep certain people out of anything. There never really was back in the 80s. Not really. There were racist, but they were a tiny, tiny minority of people. Now they control the government and everything else. Alex Ogle, I attended a talk on getting women interested in engineering and trying to keep them here. To contradict my previous statement, it was one of the least perspicacious presentations I have seen. Wow, that was a tough word. Perspicacious presentations I have seen. Alex, movie pitch. The Bridge Builder. Sydney Sweeney is a young engineer on a construction project who also needs to get contractors to work together. She's in glasses, engineer, and a bikini, ticket sales. I like it. Tuesday, on my desk. Alex Ogle, Wokistan was a great novel. Read it, peeps. Also, smash the like button. Thanks you, Alex Ogle. Always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Indie Phantom, according to Corey Feldman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was indeed a great film. It's all right. If it was in black and white, it would have been better. Joe Higashi. Nothing in Hollywood is on merit. Agents, managers, actors, producers, but the writing has to be merit. Stop it. No, it all has to be merit. I mean, ideally. Obviously, it's not going to be. But it all has to be merit. In an ideal world. That's what you have to strive for. You're never going to get it. But you want to get close to it as possible. And when you say it's never been that way, it was to more... Look, if you go further back in time, in old Hollywood, actors had to, sing, dance. They had to have tons of talent. Tons of talent. And whether or not they would sing on screen, or whether or not they would dance on screen, or whether or not they would just act on screen, some of that... Alex Ogle, perspicacious. I still don't know that word. I'm gonna have to look it up later. Man, that's a $10 word. Agents should be getting more money. That's what they do. They service their clients. They get them as much money as possible, and maybe they try to get them the other things they need. Managers, same thing. Actors, you want to get the best roles possible for you. And there's some give and take there. Actors may think they want one thing. Their agent may think they need another. It depends on how they look. It depends on the work they get. Some guys get typecast. And once they're in there, it's hard to get out. Ethan Suplee famously was very fat when he started his career. He never would have been anything other than a character actor if he hadn't suddenly gotten into amazing shape. And he lost all the weight. Now he's a beast. Although I don't see him in it as much anymore. So, I know he was in something where he was a soldier, but I haven't seen him in a while. But good for him for getting in shape. Joe Higashi, haha, you know my point. If they're gonna use nepotism, then DIY can use the BS2. Dems the rules. Well, but they're not. Look, I don't want nepotism. I don't think you should hire your kid just because he's there. There's a way to do it, where, of course, he's going to get a leg up, but at least he goes through the process. Like for an actor, you don't just like show up and start lead acting. You're supposed to go through, be in a bunch of movies as supporting guy until you make a way through it. Look, I'll tell you one example of a nepotism guy who at least had some amount of talent was Pauly Shore. Pauly Shore got on stage all the time because I think his mother owned Caroline's or one of the comedy clubs. And because of that, he got the mic a lot more than any other comedian would. But he was funny, at least funny enough. I know, I'm defending Pauly Shore. I never thought he was that funny. He had one shtick, it was okay, but, it led to a big career for him. He had his moments. I didn't think he was that funny. I kind of hated him, actually, when he was making movies, but he couldn't have gotten to where he was at without some amount of talent. Now, is he the most talented guy in the world? Oh no. There were probably guys way more talented than him that never got half the shots he did. But some of that's always going to be there. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it should be there. And I don't blame people for using whatever advantages they can use. But in the case of DEI, that's going to come back to bite you in the ass hard. Because, and I've been saying this for years. I've been saying this to producers. I said, don't buy into the DEI. Don't use DEI and don't buy into it. Because if you buy into it, when the rubber band snaps back, it's going to hit you right in the face. So then they're going to be the opposite. Then they're going to be calling me up and saying, oh, we need to put your name on this movie because nobody wants to hire us. And then I'm going to be like, okay, how much money am I getting? But, it will come back to bite them in the ass, which is why they should back off of it while they can. While you're in power is the time to create a set of rules that are more fair. Because you're the one in power and you make the rules. So by saying, ha ha ha, now we're in charge, men, all you're doing is making it so when the hammer comes back and daddy comes home, daddy's going to put you in a corner and pat you on the head and say, goodbye, sweetheart. Sorry, we're not going to hire you anymore. And when you go, but misogyny, nah, that doesn't fly anymore. See ya. And then, they'll bail on their life and go shack up with some dude in Florida, I guess. John Higashi, or Joe Higashi. But I feel you can't whine about DIY if you don't address nepotism in Hollywood, agents, managers, blah, 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 blah. I mean, how do you address it? People are going to help their kids. There's nothing to stop that. And quite frankly, I'd rather they hire their kids than hire someone. Nobody's going to be surprised if some producer says, this is the new actress. This is my wife. And it's some hot young actress he just married. And he decides to put her in a movie. No one's going to be surprised by that. And it might not be right, but he's the producer of the movie, whatever. When they say, okay, now we're going to hire a bunch of people who aren't qualified, specifically just because of their skin color, it's racist. It's virtue signaling racism. I mean, at least in the other case, she might be okay. In the DEI hire, there's not enough DEI people to hire. There's just not enough of them. So the odds are you're going to get a bunch of mediocrity. And when that is spread out over the cinema, look what you get. You get box office that means nothing. You get terrible, terrible movies, and then it's going to go the other way. And then you'll have legit people who are in these marginalized groups who won't get hired because they'll say, no, sorry, we made enough of those movies back in the 2020s. We don't make those movies anymore. See ya. Well, go see if you can get some work with the AI. Alex Ogle. It's appalling watching modern actors compared to the older ones. There used to be a concept that actors had to have talent and they built their careers around it. Nowadays, actors have to be blanks. Yeah, it's kind of turning into that. The more of the actors I see, they're very, they're just nobody. It's better off they're nobody. Now, part of that is they can slip into any role, but part of it means they don't have personality. Indie Phantom. Ethan Suplee got into Scientology, apparently. Oh, no. Yeah, he got really ripped. Last thing I saw him in was Twin Peaks, The Return, when he was still plus-sized. I didn't like The Return of Twin Peaks. I watched like 1 or 2 episodes, and then I just said, Indie Phantom. According to IMDb, he is mostly doing voice work now, ironically. Oh, that's a shame. Alex Ogle. Flippin' Eck, Tony. I spelt it out for you, and you still can't pronounce it. I know. It's like the meme I saw of Dominatrix saying the safe word is Worcestershire. Oh, I said that right. John Adams. There was that period of time where actors were either vaudeville stars, radio stars, or war vets. Sometimes all three. Yes. And they were usually pretty talented. It's also true that a lot of their ranks in the old days were regular people. And the idea of acting was like very rarely a full-time thing. Now you have, the part of the problem is you still have tons of nepotism in Hollywood. Tons of nepotism. That is a huge problem in Hollywood. That is 90% of the reason a lot of these movies are just bad. Because even the people who aren't DEI hires are the Nepo babies. So now you've got to line up as, well, we got to have DEI hires, and I got to hire my children. And, okay, I guess a craft service guy could be competent. John Adams at Alex Ogle. Eurotrip. Joe Higashi. You weren't hiring DEI for years. Now that they got a chance to reverse racism, nah, I disagree with you. You weren't hiring them prior. I mean, Richard Roundtree was Shaft. He was in movies. There was a show called Good Times. It was a really good show. Everybody liked it. Sanford and Son. Ever hear of that? These were great shows. They made huge amounts of money. Red Fox had a huge career. It's exaggerated. And people hired by DEI, when they get called out to the mat, the first thing they do is play the race card, and they play it hard. And then they romanticize the past as being, well, marginalized people didn't get a break until last year. No, that's not the way it was at all. Hollywood's always been pretty woke. Look at the original Star Trek. Original Star Trek was super advanced in that area. They made moves in that show that to this day are first, but the show was good first. And then it had that other stuff in it too. First interracial kiss. Joe Higashi. So good on them. Get as much as they can while they can is my take on it. Yeah, I mean, I understand people doing that. I don't begrudge them. But, again, it's going to end. And when it ends, oh, baby, it's going to end hard. I mean, you're going to these people won't be able to get work. Yeah, it's sad, but true. Alex Ogle, we need to recapture Sammy Davis Jr. in Cannonball Run. The Candyman man, the Candyman makes everything he takes. I remember in Cannonball Run. That's not imitation of Sammy Davis Jr. My friend used to do that imitation all the time, and then I couldn't do Sammy Davis, but I could imitate him doing Sammy Davis. The Candyman. You need a cigarette, really, to do it. Alex Ogle, lesbian headlamp casting her wife in Acolyte is just what we used to call jobs for the boys. Yeah. I mean, it's the same damn thing. It's nepotism and it's DEI. How well is that going? Alex Ogle, Sanford and Son is based on the original Galton and Simpson comedy Steptoe and Son? Really? I had no idea. And 2 Rag and Bone Men in London. There's stuff in there they could never broadcast today. I did not know that. History. Joe Higashi. Stop it. Fairness isn't diversity on the screen, but behind the camera, bro. Stop it. Ha ha ha. I'm not sure what you're saying, but long story short, if the movie isn't good, the audience will know it. So you can hire all the DEI people you want, but you're just wasting the money if they don't have the merit. They're either good or they're not. You could go do stand-up comedy and you could decide, I only want Asian comedians. You might get a good 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. But the majority? No, not every guy is going to be funny. It's just not going to happen. It's any group. There's going to be talented people and competent people. There's going to be average people, and there's going to be incompetent people. But the people, and part of the problem too is by jumping the line at DEI, you tend to gravitate towards the incompetent people because they're perfectly willing to jump the line and say whatever they need to say because they don't have talent. It's their only chance. The average person could probably, especially if they're in a marginalized group, they could do pretty well for themselves. But they may say, well, I don't want you to hire me just because I'm this or that. So there's a real problem with doing that. Just like there's a real problem with hiring your kid or whatever. John Adams. Star Trek TOS had the first television broadcast interracial kiss. Yes, it did. John Adams. Star Trek The Next Generation was going to have a male-to-male kiss with Riker and an alien, but it was blocked by the producers. Wah, wah. I don't know if I wanted to see that. And that seems to me that would have been out of character for Riker. You know who could have had that, and that would have made more sense, would have been Data. Data could have had that kiss because he was an android, and he could have said, "Oh, I'm just gonna try this." I think it would have made more sense for Data. Riker, nah, he was supposed to be. I think that would have been out of character for him. Geordie LaForge, it definitely would have been. Maybe not Picard, but he was the lead. They probably weren't going to do it with him either. Who's left? O'Brien? No, he was married. So, yeah, I think it would have been a bad move. I think they could have done it with a secondary character that they made up just for that thing. I think that would have worked. Alex Ogle, it's true. The movie list you present each week, Tony, becomes steadily more depressing because of the waning quality. DEI is easy to identify as a casual factor in the lackluster output. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of other factors too. I mean, you look at a movie like Vampires by John Carpenter, it apparently just ran out of money, is the word I heard. Because I'm a huge John Carpenter fan, and James Wood is in it. And I've never quite gotten the full story about it, but it appears that they ran out of money. And you watch the first act of that, it's really good, and it looks like it's teeing up something great, but then it just falls apart. And I couldn't tell you what happened. Because John Carpenter is an infinitely creative guy, but I don't know, something happened. Something happened on that movie. They either ran out of money, ran out of time. I don't know. So there are other factors. It could just be bad. It could just be that the people thought it would be a good idea. And it's just bad. It could be, a lot of times it's a big actor like Julia Louis-Dreyfus trying to do drama. I don't know how good of an actress she is. I mean, I think she's really good on comedy. I would love to see her in more comedies. She still looks pretty good for her age. She's got good energy, even though she's got severe TDS. I kind of don't want to see her in dramas. But, that's the way she wants to go. I mean, Bill Murray made that transition, kind of, but he still kind of always had a fun vibe to his delivery. But now he's considered a great actor to a large extent. But he still can kind of do funny, although Ghostbusters didn't seem to do well, but that's another whole thing. At Alex Ogle at John Adams. TOS was prime example of constructing a story around values rather than inserting them into a story. John Adams. The Riker Kiss episode is called The Outcast. The alien actor was a woman, and the entire episode was about her sexuality being illegal on her planet since they were a genderless alien race. Oh, weird. I don't remember that one. John Adams at Alex Ogle. That's the least part, that at least partly why it holds up and New Trek is bombing. Alex Ogle at John Adams. I recall that episode. It was well written. It was with the Dax character, DS9, but it was still a bit awkward. I do like Dax from DS9. I like the DS9 show better than TNG. I think it's superior. I think it holds together better. I agree with Razor Fist on that. I always loved DS9 and hated Voyager. Me and my friends used to watch that show, and the Enterprise show looked so bad, I bailed on the first episode. I hated the opening credits. I said, I can't watch these opening credits every week, guys. And I bailed. I said, we got to pick a different show. All right. I got to move on with some things. It's 10:05. I'm coming up on 3 hours here. One thing I wanted to talk about, the bloodbath in comic sales. Comic book sales down 73%. And you can point to the comic book sales 100%. It's the DEI. 100%. You don't have the kind of nepotism in Hollywood in comics. That just doesn't really exist. Nobody's really hiring their kids. I mean, maybe in a couple of cases you could point to, but it's not a high nepotism business. The sales, 90% of what's going on in comics, 100, I would say it's all DEI. It's all DEI, and each script is worse than the next. Some of the hires for the artist are DEI hires, and they're awful. But I'm not going to go down too far down that rabbit hole. It's crazy. John Adams at Alex. It's definitely not my favorite episode. Dax was kind of annoying too, if I'm being honest. Too much of a know-it-all. Alex Ogle at John Adams. Agreed. Indie Phantom. I know my local comic store is mostly surviving on bulk sales and old stuff, including Archie Digest. Excuse me. Archie Digest. Yeah. They are... Most of the comic book store guys I know are surviving on old stuff. They're buying and selling online, and nothing new is selling. Nothing new is selling. It's bad. It's really bad. I did 2 comic book shows this week. No one at the comic book show today was buying new stuff that I'm aware. The comic book show in Dover was kind of woke, a little bit of woke in the mix. But they weren't buying comics. They were doing cosplay. They were buying plushies. Comics are just done. The mainstream comics. The mainstream comics are done. Marvel and DC, at this point, I want to see them put out of their misery. Because it's so bad. I mean, the stuff that gets posted online now, it's not even funny anymore. It used to be. It used to be shocking. Now it's just like, oh, God. Another one of these? Who even spent the time to buy the issue and scan in the page? Like, it usually has to be a fan that's on his way out of the hobby at that point, and you got to think to yourself, you stayed in that long? I mean, I shouldn't talk. I stayed in pretty long in Spider-Man, well beyond the expiration date for me, but it's just bad. No one's talking about new comics. Which is why I'm doing pretty well. When people see my comics and my books, they go, oh, what's this? A lot of times they don't know who I am. But it's different. And then when I explain it to them, they're like, oh, these are good ideas. And then a lot of times they buy stuff. You know what I sold a lot of this week? I have a 4-issue miniseries called The Fix. And I spent a lot of money trying to make The Fix work, and man, it just didn't work. The idea was I was going to do a novel series, and I may bring this character back at some point if I ever have time, but I was going to do a novella series, and there would be comic book illustrations in the novel. And there was actually an opening of the novel that was a comic book, and then you read the novel inside, and there were chapter head illustrations. Then there was a 4-issue miniseries, same character, different adventures, and I mean, we didn't sell that many, but we sold some of it. I wish I could get my hands on more copies. John Adams, I wish I hadn't given away my Archie collection. The only comics I bought recently is Rippaverse Yara and Sword of Azrael from the early 90s. Yeah, you know what's hard to get at comic shows is Simpson stuff, because I ask for it all the time because I'm looking for my stuff. Although today somebody had a collected edition and he had bought some of my comics, and I saw that he had a collected edition. I said, oh, I worked on Bart Simpson. Do you want me to check if any of my stories are in that? And he went, hell yeah. So I flipped through and I found one of my stories and I signed that for him. But yeah, it's like nearly impossible to find Simpsons now. No one has single issues, hardly at all. The only ones they tend to have are Bartman. They tend to have like lots of Bartman, which I didn't work on. I think it was mostly over by the time I started writing for them, but people don't want to give up their Simpsons comics. In fact, I met a family today, and their deal was they go down to the shore every year and stay at their house or whatever, and they have in their shore house, they have a collection of comics that they brought down there for their kids when they were younger. And every once in a while they'll buy a few and put it in the collection. And today they bought one of the Pineys books to put in the collection, which I felt kind of honored. And I thought that was great. So I'm going to be part of their little family tradition every year. When they go down, they might read, an Archie comic or whatever. Oh, let me read this Pineys book. So that should be fun. Fun for them anyway. And I thought that was great. The closest thing I have to that is I used to have this barber, and in his waiting area, he would always have magazines and newspapers or whatever. But for the kids, he had just a pile of old comics. And let me tell you something. He had the weirdest effing comics I'd ever seen. To this day, I can't find comics as weird as I found in that barbershop. These were all from the 70s, and they were titles I never heard of. Also, the Pope John Paul II comic book, which was about his life, which I read too, which is really weird. But there was a bunch of 70s comics about these like satanic cults of the woods that were killing people, and the sheriff trying to figure out the mystery. And I was like, oh my God, I never read anything like this. This is in the 70s, so I was a kid. I'm waiting for my haircut reading these crazy comics. Yeah, so those comics are worth some money, I think, but they're long gone. That barbershop's long gone too. All right, moving on to Hollywood Reporter. Sherry Redstone is trying to sell Paramount, and the sale isn't going through exactly. So I'm not sure what's going to happen to Paramount. Remember, Paramount owns Star Trek, and the moment they make this sale, it could finally mean that Kurtzman Track is finally dead. The guy who basically ruined Star Trek, and that Star Trek could finally get a decent reset. Possibly. I wouldn't get your hopes too up, but we'll see. So here's another reason why DEI is bad. John Leguizamo urges TV Academy to embrace diverse Emmy voting. Let this be the start of a new era. So now he wants us to vote in the Emmys. I say us, but I really mean them. They want them to vote in the Emmys based on race, sexual orientation, whatever the thing du jour is this week. And how's that going to work? So now you're going to give awards to people who don't even deserve them. Oh well, we have to give awards to this show because there's so many characters from this particular group. Doesn't make any sense. Alex Ogle. Could is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that statement, Tony. Yes, it is. Indie Phantom. Oh yeah, they had some whack comics in the 70s. I used to dig some of the horror stuff they had, like Creepy, etc. And when Mad was big, they had a bunch of ripoffs like Crazy and Cracked. Yeah, and Cracked survived online for a long time and then went woke, believe it or not. Indie Phantom, John Leguizamo proved he really is the pest, 1997. John Adams, don't the Oscars already have DEI requirements for representation in movies in order to even be eligible for an Oscar? Yes, they do. Which, again, makes no sense. So if I'm doing a drama set in, I don't know, England in the 1500s, suddenly I got to assert people of certain races and sexualities, and now the movie looks ridiculous. Part of making a movie is the look. It's like when they shoved, they had that black actress play one of the queens in England. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't mean she's a bad actress or people are racist. It just means, come on. It would, and again, you wouldn't like the reverse. You wouldn't say, hey, let's remake Black Panther with Ryan Gosling. It doesn't make any sense. Black Panther is a black dude. He's from Africa. He's the king of an African nation. He should be black. John Adams, I read that one. Alex Ogle, because of the DEI requirements, I expect the Acolyte to sweep the board next time around. Yeah, who knows? I mean, that's another thing, too. So you have what appears to be a terrible, terrible show like the Acolyte. Should it win a bunch of Emmys because it has great representation? Should that even be an Emmy? The Acolyte wins Best Representation. And then people go see it and hate it. So what does that say about representation? Well, I hate this show. Oh, it has tons of representation. And then people associate representation with crap. And then the next time you go, hey, we had this great show. It's got representation. Whether it's good or not, they're going to say, oh, I heard that's all crap. Yeah, I'm not going to watch that. That's kind of what's happening to the Acolyte now. It's not getting great numbers. That despite what Disney is touting, I suspect it's a lie. And it also was only on Disney Plus. Again, these shows used to air on network TV and had the potential to reach hundreds of millions of people. Now they air on a streaming platform. You have to pay for it to even see it. Who do you expect to see this stuff? John Adams, the TV show with the Black Queen was Anne Boleyn, 2021. Thank you. Yes. Doesn't make any sense. Here's Julia Louis-Dreyfus addresses Jerry Seinfeld's political correctness criticism. Quote, good to be vigilant. What does that mean? I don't know. She's pretty woke. I think Louis-Dreyfus played Elaine on Seinfeld, blah, 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 blah. The lens through which we create art today is different lens, she said. Okay, sure. All right. Believe that. Believe that if you want, Elaine. Good luck with the drama, I guess. Tokyo Vice canceled at Max, for those of you who care about that show. That looked okay-ish. I didn't see it. Alex Ogle, Anne Boleyn was every bit as black as Michael Jackson? Oh, you mean the actual Anne Boleyn. Michael Jackson was very black at one time. James Gunn fills out Daily Planet newsroom for Superman. Just make the movie. Just make the movie, James. Make it. Make the movie. Bounding in the comics. Alec Baldwin and his wife are doing a reality show called The Baldwins. I think this is preemptive money making for Alec, so he will not be broke after everybody sues him, is my take on this. That he is hot to make a ton of money, and that maybe this is the only thing he can really get for serious money on TV, because he's got to do a lot of shows in a short amount of time, and that, you know, he expects to lose bigly in the lawsuits. I think he will. Now, maybe he'll get lucky and he'll settle. I mean, he's worth, let's see how much he's worth. again, these aren't particularly accurate, but 70 million? I mean, but that's probably high. Like, I punched in my name and it says I'm worth 100 grand. I am not worth anywhere close to 100 grand. I want to assure you all that if you sold every item I have, including my clothes, you wouldn't come up even close to 100 grand. So Alec Baldwin is probably not really worth 70 million. You know, they're probably estimating that based on various factors. He's got a high overhead. You know, he pays a ton of taxes, I'm sure. He's probably got, in reality, you know, a bunch of stock worth, say, I don't know, 10 million, which is more than enough to live on for the rest of your life, but he's probably going to get sued for millions over the Rust thing by a lot of people. I think they finished the damn movie, though, so he might not get sued by the producers. But if the movie does badly, they could potentially sue him saying that it's his fault the movie did badly. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Indie Phantom watched the first Tokyo Vice, directed by Michael Mann. Slick as hell visually, but surprised it made it 2 seasons. Indie Phantom, Alec and his wife need the spotlight. He can't just seem to go away. Yeah, I don't know if his wife does, but he definitely does, I think. But I think he needs the money. I really do. I think he's going to get absolutely blasted by Hanya Hutchinson's husband. I think he's going to pay a lot of money. And then possibly a few other people. I think the crew is suing the production and maybe him. And then possibly the Rust Armor might sue him. I mean, who knows? He could get sued by a lot of people. And between the lawyer's fees and then he'll end up paying something probably at least to the husband. I mean, he could take it on the chin. So he might be in trouble. Alex Ogle, I could see the reviews for the Baldwins. It aimed for greatness. It was shooting for the stars. It went off hot, half-cocked. The Babylon Bee had a great headline. Let me see if I can find it. It's really funny. Where is it? Can I do a search? Yeah, I can. All right. See if this one pops up. Yep, here it is. Alec Baldwin hosts exciting new game show called Is It Loaded? That's funny. John Adams, don't sell Joan short like that. Indie Phantom, lawsuits. Thanks for the 70 million, Alec. You could give us the rest later. I don't think he'll get that. You know, I don't think I don't know how much they could sue for. I mean, because you got to sue within the realm of possibility unless you're Alex Jones. So the realm of possibility is how much Hanya Hudson's income would have been for the rest of her life. Now, she's a cinematographer in Hollywood, so that's a pretty good potential. But I don't think it's above, say, I don't know, 20 million, unless the judge really just wants to stick it to him. And I think 20 million, he'd have to sell off some of his properties, but I think he'd survive it. But, like, if he gets, like, a $50 million, I think he's in trouble. I think he's in real trouble if he loses 50 million. But he has all this time, and it could be, like, he's doing this reality show, right? The smart thing to do is he's getting sued, but his wife's not getting sued. So what he should do is just pour all the money to his wife, right? He does the show for free, but they pay his wife the money they would have paid him. Something like that. All right, this we already covered. All right, moving on. Deadline. Alex Ogle. Baldwin should be aiming for the Dems to convict him in the New York court. He might be able to fundraise off of that. Hey, good point. Good point. You guys have a lot of zingers tonight. Very impressive. John Goodman cites almost having a nervous breakdown before learning to overcome his fears. Okay. John Cryer, he's got TDS bad, clarifies that Andrew McCarthy is now a prince after saying he was a D during Pretty in Pink. Interesting. Optimus Prime arrested in Austin, Texas. No, not that one. Oh, there was a man in Texas who has the name Optimus Prime who was arrested. Weird. Indie Phantom. Fact. The prosecutor from the Kim Basinger boxing Helena lawsuit knew Alec B was a hothead and thought she could get Alec to cross the line in a courtroom. I saw video on it. Oh, interesting. That could very well happen in this case. I don't know. He's older. Maybe he's a little savvy to that. Here's Julia Louise Dreyfus again. Says comedians complaining about political correctness is a red flag. Being aware of certain sensitivities is not a bad thing. Thanks, Julia. Okay, I take back what I said. I don't think her comedy's worth saving now. So, okay. Again, do dramas. Do a big movie lecturing us about how terrible we all are. Sounds fun. Indie Phantom. Oh, yeah, there's a documentary coming out on the Brat Pack that Andrew McCarthy produced for Hulu. Yeah, I saw a little bit of clip of that. The Rap. SpongeBob SquarePants villain Plankton is getting his own Netflix movie. So there's that. That could be fun. New Gumby Kids series being produced alongside an adult-geared series. That's weird. Confusing. Don't think they should do that. Hunger Games prequel film in the works as novel is being written. Jesus. They want more Hunger Games stuff pretty bad. Stop writing prequels. Stop writing prequels. God. Alex Ogle, sorry, Dreyfus is the one who appeared next to Seinfeld, isn't she? Yes. Yes, she is. Let's see. Iron Age and Arrow Comics launch Indie Comics Unlimited free newsletter to shops. I think that's very good for comic books. I think it might be a little too late, but that could help maybe turn some indie guys into something in these shops. We really need in comics the new talent to come in. And somehow it has to happen through the guys who are crowdfunding. It can't happen through Marvel and DC anymore. They don't seem to be willing to finance that kind of stuff anymore. They should. Dark Horse or one of these bigger companies should finance that. And they kind of do a little, but not to the extent that they should, I feel. They should be going to these crowdfunding guys who are successful and saying, hey, can we get in on this? Can we get you into comic shops or something? Vancouver Comics Fest apologizes for banning Jewish creator for IDF service. Whoa, that doesn't sound good. Too much woke. Too much woke. All right. We got the wrap. Probably nothing really in here. AI copyright issues on Shifting Sands, but legal protections are coming. Experts tell PGA produced by conference. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. How Disney legend Mark Henn created the first Donald Duck short in 63 years? Cool. I'm going to have to watch that. Cosmic book news. The Crow, horrible, unwatchable, says Hollywood writer. Well, I think might as well be, because I think the debut of the trailer already killed any kind of momentum it would have had. The Boys Season 4 showrunner tells fans not to watch. First 3 episodes getting released at once. So I always want to obey my betters, so I better not watch them. Doctor Who Gay Kiss episode, second lowest ratings of all time. So that might be the reason they didn't have Riker kiss that dude. But the Doctor is also a special case. You know, they're really, really pumping into DEI in that show. Holy cow. Holy cow. They are really going for it. Russell T Davies just doesn't give an F. He is really stepping on the gas. The rainbow-colored gas pedal on Doctor Who. Holy cow. Like, 20 years ago, if you'd come to me and said, hey, listen, we want you to write a parody Doctor Who where he's incredibly gay, I would have said, okay, you want me to use all the gay tropes? Yeah, use them all. It'll be funny. And then I put them all in there. It wouldn't be half as gay as this show is, from what I've seen. It wouldn't be half as gay. This show is just, you might as well paint the TARDIS rainbow. You might as well reshape it into a giant dildo at this point. I mean, it is off the charts. I mean, you put, I wouldn't even have gone with musical. Jesus, you put music in it too? Oh, we got to have the Doctor singing. Why? That was never in the show. That has nothing to do with Doctor Who. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts in my view. So there's the headlines there. Ghostbusters animated series coming soon to Netflix. Well, maybe. It depends on which characters are in it. I guess they're going to do updated Ghostbusters, so it probably won't be as cool. John Adams, don't give them any ideas. Yeah. Alex Ogle, I don't care that RDT had have him kiss a man. I care that he had the Doctor kiss. The Doctor is fatherly figure, aloof to the things around him and those he meets other than intellectual interest. I don't care that RTD had the Doctor kiss. Yeah, it's just way too, I mean, like, it's so far from what anybody would want in a Doctor Who episode other than the most ravenous fans of the rainbow flag. Like, this is a different show. You could have just made another show about, oh, here's a different Time Lord. Yeah, he's gay and he's black and he's a friend of the Doctor. And the Doctor would be like, oh, hey, Frank. Like, oh, hey, Doctor. How you doing? Oh, Frank the Time Lord. All right. And he's going off on his very gay adventures. I mean, you could have done that. What would have been the harm? It would have been the same damn show. It would have been in the same universe as Doctor Who. It would be canceled in 2 episodes, but yeah, that's why they didn't do it, I guess. Probably would be canceled in 2 episodes. Here, they're like kind of torturing the last few Doctor Who fans, hanging by their fingernails, and, you know, the handful of woke idiots who continue to watch this stuff just to spite the chuds. No one's going to care about this. Alex Ogle, sorry, my keyboard is acting up. Oh, I was wondering why you typed it that way. I thought I was missing something. Because you typed it, I don't care that RTT. I thought you were trying to make a joke or something. Alex Ogles. Oh, I read that already. Sorry. Yeah, so why do this? You could have, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. And I was saying, so on the Razor Fist show, I was listening today on the way to the event. He talked, his sidekick, Tactical Hobo, talked about how Razor said once, the worst feeling isn't anger towards your production, it's indifference. And that's what they're going to get. That's the end of this. People are now becoming indifferent to Star Wars. They're going to be indifferent to Doctor Who. They'll be indifferent to Star Trek. You won't be able to get them back at all, even when the show's good. Look at Furiosa. Everybody I hear says it's not that bad of a movie, but people are indifferent to it. They don't care. You've completely destroyed their trust. Now when you promote one of these things, and you're a studio, especially Disney, people are just going to go, whoa, I don't trust that. That's what I do, but I'm a movie guy. It takes the public a while to get to my point. It doesn't take much, though. I mean, imagine you're just a regular dude going to see movies, and you see maybe 4 movies a year. And then you start going to the movies, and every one you pick is worse than the next. You start to go, why are these movies so bad? Like, why can't I pick a good movie? Movies suck. That's what you're going to conclude, even if you only see like 3 or 4 movies a year. You're going to say, movies suck. And if your friend recommended them, and your friend's one of those woke idiots, you're going to say, you don't know what's good. I don't know what you're talking about. That movie sucked, dude. They. John Adams at Alex Ogle. That's my stapler. That's funny. Let's see. Am I at the end of this? Yes, I am. I am at the end, folks. And it's been 3.5 hours. So this was the longest live stream I've done. But I make no apologies. But I do have to wrap because I need to get another iced tea badly. I'm starting to... The caffeine I ingested is already wearing off. And I have some more videos to make. I haven't made the rest of my videos. And Joan has to go for a WALK. And she's very pissed it hasn't happened. Oh, she's sleeping. So let's wrap it up. What did we learn today? Well, Hollywood's still woke. And it's not going well for them. I don't think the Bad Boy movie is woke, by the way. I think it's probably not woke at all, which is probably why it's doing okay. So it's going to take a while for Hollywood to rebuild. Alex Ogle, RTD has wanted to turn the Doctor gay. I don't recall which Doctor actor moved on, but RTD said he hoped a particular actor was going to step into the role. There's something very prurient about him. Man, you use good words. And I'm going to look 2 of them up after this. Indie Phantom, what we learned. Hard bodies, worth saying. Yep. Hard bodies, rated R. For adult situations. Alex Ogle, we learned that this stream is perspicacious. Perspicacious, I got it. It has a high perspicacity. Perspicacious. Got it. Now I remember. Now I remember the word. Why can't I say certain words? I actually wrote that into the Pineys for Hemingway. There's a scene where he has to say homunculi. It's a kind of monster, a homunculus. And he's trying to tell the other characters, no, that's not such and such. It's a homunculus. Homunculus. A homunculus. And then Shelley says, do you mean a homunculi? Yes. Indie Phantom, LOL. Yes, for all my radio savvy, there's certain words, man. Mediocre throws me sometimes when I see it. I want to say MediaCore. Every time I see it, I want to say MediaCore. But I know it's mediocre, but I can't. If I can't hear that word in my head, I can't say it. I go MediaCore, 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 MediaCore. No, it's not MediaCore. Joe Higashi, still here. Hello. Hard Bodies 2. That Cinemax show? No, this is a 1986 movie, a sequel to Hard Bodies 1. Let me tell you what Hard Bodies 1's about. 3 middle-aged guys rent a beach house and hopefully score with young single women. Not having what it takes, the men hire a sexy young surfer, Scotty, to teach them some game and help them meet girls. 1984 movies, bro. 1984. It was a simpler time when men could just go to the beach and try to get a girl in a bikini. Not anymore. You don't know what's in that bikini today. Joe Higashi. So, Cinemax? It probably was on Cinemax. Okay. Indie Phantom. Everyone watched the Hard Bodies trailer after this, and then the opening credits. I may very well do that. I wonder if it's streaming somewhere. It's probably on Amazon somewhere. Or, I don't think the movie did very well. Let's see how well Hard Bodies did in the box office. Hard Bodies. I'm going to guess it didn't do too well. But I don't know. It was probably pretty cheap for them made. In 1984, I'm going to guess they spent like, I don't know, $2 million on it. Well, it made $7 million. Oh, wow. Hard Buddies 2 only made $78,000. Wow. 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 All right, let's see. Oh, it doesn't tell you what it costs to make, though. In adjusted for inflation, it made $22 million. So maybe that's money. For 1984, Hard Buddies 2 only made $78,000. Jesus. That is not good. That is very not good. Oh, man. Indie Phantom. Actually, though, current bikinis are awesome. I have been to the beach. Yeah, they have these really tiny bikinis now. I was showing some off in on the News Blast. They have these micro bikinis and then these other things which were just like, it was electrical tape over the genitals of women, basically. Joe Higashi. I used to love the TV show Highlander and Xena Warrior Princess as a kid. Those were good shows. I like them. Indie Phantom. Well, enough to get a sequel. Joe Higashi. I thought they were so advanced. Also loved Renegade as a kid, haha, with Lorenzo Lamas, haha. Indie Phantom. Hard Bodies was under $1 million budget, guaranteed. Probably. Alex Ogle. Hard Body 2 appears to be on YouTube for free. They probably made more money on YouTube than actually in the theaters. I mean, Jesus, $78,000. I wonder if that's even watchable now. All right. I got to wrap this up. So everybody go watch Hard Bodies and enjoy the 1980s as it was meant to be enjoyed. Partying. Party hardy, because that's what we did in the 80s. I didn't do that. I was a dateless wonder, but other people did. I was the guy with the glasses doing this. Are you guys drinking beer again? So yes, go out there and learn from the 80s. And tell your friends what the 80s meant. It meant to party hardy, bro, and have perspicacity. Joe Higashi. Thing is, less is more. It's hotter showing good girl give a little than to show it all off all movie. You're just a buzzkill today, Joe Higashi. Hence why Hard Bodies 2 didn't do well. No, we need more bikinis in this world, Joe Higashi. Not less. Not less, my friend. More bikinis. Joe Higashi. So atomic wedgies? A true nerd. Salute, bro. No, I was too tall for. I was the giant nerd, so they didn't want to hit me because they could awaken the sleeping giant that was in me. But they would call me names. I was a head taller than most of the other kids in my class for most of my school run. So, Indie Phantom, haha, take care all. Yes, take care indeed. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow. Back with more videos. I've made no videos and it's already 10. Oh my God, it's 11:15. It's 11:15, Joan. We got to say goodbye. Say goodbye, Joan. Goodbye, Joan. Good night. And it's